Crossing into another world, this being became the patriarch of the Celestial Demons Pavilion. With an exuberant appearance, the man has a beard, long white hair, and a demonic countenance. Afterward, this being created 9 villains to cause trouble in various places across the world. Tree trunks symbolize the creation of these 9 villains, who are vastly distinct from one another. At this moment, the 9 are being surrounded by the 10 major sects of justice. While their creator observes everything happening, he notes that these are both internal and external problems. He questions why he transmigrated into a useless old man and comments that his disciples are making their own plans. He exclaims that there is a system, and it is evident that he is undergoing new tests. Faced with this ultra-technological system, he commands it to open a specific file. He instructs it to observe how he will defeat the 10 righteous sects as he shoots lightning from his fingers. While the 9 train, he orders them to observe how he disciplines his villains. And after all this, he reaches the peak of his life alongside his creations. On the gazebo of the Golden Court Mountain, the radiant and towering mountains are striking. Brothers complain about the sect, but the 5th sister warns of a trap and says that even without their master, they can handle the situation. The sister notes that the greatest orthodox experts of the nascent divinity tribulation realm are present, and that their master's condition is worrying. A man reincarnates as the evil patriarch Ji Tiandao, wonders where he is, and tries to recover his memories. A month ago, the 10 orthodox experts set a trap for Ji Tiandao, and the battle ended in a draw. Now, the sect experts are at the foot of the mountain, waiting to attack again. At this moment, Golden Court Mountain is facing an unprecedentedly threatening crisis. Meanwhile, the former Lu Zhou begins to regain the memories of the evil patriarch Ji Tiandao. He recalls that in his lifetime, Ji created 9 villain disciples in various regions, who caused trouble in many places. The eldest betrayed the master and formed a rival sect, while the second disciple became the evil sword, brutally challenging and defeating experts. The 6th sister, Yi Tianqin, is the master of the derived Moon Palace, supported by women and nicknamed the Jade-Faced Shura. The 7th, Siwuya, is a manipulative villain who incited wars through discord and possesses a global information network. The 8th disciple, Shu Honggong, earned the title of Evil King 1 year after leaving the mountain. The 9th, Xia Yuaner, recently joined and became the favorite, being the only one who consciously stayed on the mountain the entire time. Ji Tiandao lived for 1,000 years, nearly reaching the lifespan limit of a cultivator. And the older he got, the less control and oversight he had over his disciples. With his body feeling hollow and weak, he tries to internalize Ji's memories and adapt to his body. The disciples notice his awakening and ask how he is feeling. Mingshi, the 4th, says that the experts are at the foot of the mountain, and he fears they might break the defensive shield. Duanmu, the 3rd, suggests calling the eldest brother, who has a lower sect with thousands of followers, to assist. Zhao Yu, the 5th, proposes calling the 7th younger brother since he is a clever man. The master shouts and says that the mountain shields will be enough to hold off the invaders for a while and orders them to calm down. Ji suspects his 2 disciples due to their suspicious draw and notes that without the shield, they would have attacked already. His cultivation base is gone, and he is becoming useless. Ji then says he knows they are all waiting for his death. The villains deny this and bow to their master, but he fears their betrayal. However, as their master, he can control them. Duanmu says that once taught, the teachings stay for life, and they would never betray their master. Master Ji Tiandao orders them all to leave, as he has a plan to contain the enemies. All the disciples obey and disappear from Master Ji's sight, leaving him alone as requested. The reincarnated man wonders what sin Ji committed for him to have to fix his mess. He questions how to handle the internal and external issues, given that the old villain's body barely moves. A message says that after 1,000 years, his task is complete, and he taught his 9 disciples. With the merit system activated, someone at a computer says that the cheats will now begin. Various pieces of information about Ji appear on the screen, detailing his race and remaining lifespan, which is only 3 days. Noticing the negative 100,000 merit points, and the 3 remaining days of life, he is shocked. The system begins to reassess this information. The correction changes his name to Lu Zhou and, along with that, assigns him the task of repelling his enemies. By completing the prerequisite task and correcting itself, the merit points will be reset to 0. After detecting that the host is very weak, the system offers a beginner's package. Lu Zhou orders the gift to be opened and realizes the system is reasonable, as it provided a gift recognizing his physical condition. He receives a card that grants life force, and Lu laments the loss of Ji's cultivation base. Additionally, he receives 3 cards that restore him to Ji's peak form, bringing him to his most powerful state. Since his weakened form managed to tie with the 10 experts, his peak form should be able to handle them. He also receives 5 shield cards that protect him from 5 fatal attacks. Lu Zhou holds the reversal card and is impressed by its ability to grant him life force. He shouts to use the card, and a green tornado of magical energy appears in the temple, engulfing the place. Duanmu notices the strong energy and comments that since the betrayal, the master has kept some tricks up his sleeve. Zhao says he didn't feel any energy flow from him and heard rumors that the master was injured. Yin says it's possible to hide the energy flow and asks the younger sister if she knows what trick this is, but she denies it. The experts shout for the villains to come out, declaring that they are surrounded. Yin recognizes Jifeng, the brother of the Celestial Sword sect, who is in the Divine Court realm. He laments the swordsman's numerical advantage, but knows the real problem is the experts. Duanmu comments that there is no chance of getting help from the first brother, and hopes the master will assist. Yin says that despite being considered traitors, if they want to escape now, no one will stop them. Duanmu says he can't leave without a weapon, and Yu asks if the broken weapon is more important than his life. The young girl asks the older brothers and sisters if they truly won't fight alongside the master. She asks how they have the courage to do this even after the master taught them everything. The eldest sister says there are many things the girl doesn't know because she joined the sect recently. Yin says that although the master taught cultivation techniques, he also tortured them. However, he admits that they all became stronger because of Ji's acts of torture. Yin states that she is naive not to realize the disciples share the same bad reputation as the master. But the younger sister says that's no excuse to betray their master. Stretching, Ji Tian now says he's feeling a bit old, and that in his past life, Lu was used to being 30 years old, and it was shocking to suddenly be so old. Moreover, he restored his remaining lifespan to 313 days. Lu imagines the possibility of acquiring more reversal cards by trading for other items. After a burst of energy collides with the shield, Lu wonders if the cultivators are already breaking it. He notes that the mountain is a precious place since even experts of the realm struggle to break the shield. Suddenly, the old man notices his disciples appearing out of nowhere and shouting for him. The younger sister greets her master and comments that he looks younger. The barrier protecting the Golden Court mountain from the outside can still be seen. Patting his disciple's head, Lu notes that despite being a villain, the old man has a gentle side. Duanmu comments that the shield is being broken and asks for permission to fight and massacre them. The elderly villain casts a severe and authoritative look at his disciple Duanmu, who looks around confused, not understanding what his master's look means. Looking at the constantly attacked barrier, the old man says he already has a plan to deal with it. Under attack, the old villain Ji orders everyone to follow him and declares they are at war. The leader of the sword sect orders an attack, saying the old man must be weakened and that's why he doesn't try to flee. His subordinates shout that he must be afraid to leave, and that's why they should keep attacking. Zhou Jifeng, the sect leader, warns his subordinates to be cautious as the old man is nearby. Several bursts of energy are unleashed and strike the barrier. Meanwhile, the old man emerges from the mountain. Looking at the attacks directed at the shield, with a tired gaze he simply sighs. His disciples wonder why their master, Ji Tiandao, stopped in front of the enemies. Chanfeng, from the sword sect, comments that after 1 month, the patriarch seems to have grown younger. The old patriarch, in a severe and deep tone, says that Chanfeng is an insolent old man. Chanfeng says that while he can deceive his disciples, he cannot deceive them. He states that if Ji surrenders now, the orthodox sects will leave his corpse intact. Zhou tells the 4 disciples that the old man is still very injured and is merely pretending. Jifeng offers the 4 villains the chance to join his side to help eliminate the old man. Yin asks for permission to slaughter Jifeng, and Zhao says that if he survives 1 strike from her, she will let him kill him. The master says it won't be necessary, as the orthodox sects will not allow a one-on-one fight. The orthodox sect's subordinates order Jifeng to step back. Using his flying sword, he retreats in fear as someone passes by him. Chanfeng states that despite the strength of the disciples surpassing the realm, all the sects have united to punish Master Ji. The patriarch says he will make his judgment of good and evil and that it is his responsibility to punish his disciples. He asks if he punished Shihai for stealing thousands of items from the capital and founding his own sect. Then he questions Ji if it wasn't Yi Shangrong who kidnapped the princess married to the great Yen. In a dry manner, the old patriarch responds that it was. Chan angrily questions if the departure of 30,000 cultivators was Siwuya's fault, and Ji agrees. Chanfeng states that all of this is due to Master Ji's negligence and lack of strict teaching. The patriarch defends himself, saying that people from other regions are not his family and are not worthy of pity. Calling Chanfeng's motives deplorable, the old man prepares to attack Ji. He challenges the wicked old man to step out of the shield if he has the courage and stop pretending. Lu notices that the old man usually does not converse with enemies, yet this time he is arguing with the cultivators. While the disciples look at their master with a strange gaze, Lu feels something unusual. Yin knows that their master typically doesn't argue with his enemies, but instead goes straight into battle. Ming Shirin jumps to the wrong conclusion, thinking their master is injured. Chanfeng commands the old man to step out of the protective shield. He then steps out and tells him to show his strength. They use the sword sect's unique ability that delivers 100 strikes, and the attack will measure Ji's strength. All the disciples scream in worry for their master, but Xia Yuan tells them to calm down. The disciples wonder if the master has some trick up his sleeve and decide to let them test it. They realize it is a trap by Chang, as this is the strongest ability, and would defeat anyone. Lu Zhou knows that when the right moment comes, he must use the card that brings Ji to his peak. Lu understands that his disciples' suspicions toward him are increasing. The system notifies Lu Zhou that he has an unread message. The message tells him to reveal his disciples' intentions, and Lu realizes he is surrounded by enemies. The old man shouts while launching the attack of the 100 celestial swords, intending to defeat Ji. Ci tells her master to dodge, and Yin knows that even uninjured, it would be difficult to take such an attack. Shireen is shocked, wondering why the master would take the attack directly like this. Yu launches a burst of energy, saying the master cannot leave, and Duan says their powers would disappear with his defeat. Hearing this, as the swords approach, the master is taken aback. Lu realizes that the disciples fear his departure for the loss of treasures, not out of concern for him. The attacks hit and damage the barrier, and his villainous disciples tell him to retreat. He notices that the shield protecting the mountain has cracked and will not last much longer. The protection card was not activated, meaning the attack was not fatal, but the disciples disrupted the plan. The subordinates feel ashamed of the old man's state but are impressed he survived the strike. The disciples realize that Chan used the master as a test subject to deliver a large-scale attack. Chang tells you that she disrupted the fight and notices that her position is no longer as respected among them. Zhang laments that the patriarch of the villains needed the protection of his disciples. Using the system, Lu knows he must act quickly, as the cards last only half an hour. Yin tells the master to preserve himself while the four of them face the subordinates. The old man questions if Yin is doubting his decisions, and he says he would never do that. Before fighting, the old man needs to make his apprentices loyal to him, as the card won't last long. The master says they are being insolent, and they justify it by claiming they were protecting him from Chang's traps. Ming Shirin says he knows the master has been pretending for a long time, and that it's time to stop pretending. He orders the third eldest brother, Duanmu, to stand up, and he obeys, rising to his feet. The sister tells the master to surrender, promising that as long as he leaves his techniques behind, they will protect him forever. His enemies say that even if they don't attack, he will lose after being betrayed. The old patriarch asks Xia Yuana what she thinks, and she is shocked, unable to respond. He says he doesn't mind, as the first two brothers who betrayed him were more resolute than her. After completing a side quest, he gains the Eye of Truth ability, allowing him to see people's loyalty. He notices that Xia Yuana has 60% loyalty, and claims she would never betray her master. He sees that Ming Shirin has 15% loyalty, which is steadily decreasing. Duanmu Xing is at 23% loyalty, and also declining. Zhao Yu is at 35% loyalty, and decreasing as well. The system states that if loyalty drops to 0%, the disciple will betray the sect, but if it reaches 80% or 90%, they will never betray. Lu Zhou is surprised that three brothers are betraying him, while Xi's loyalty is increasing. The old patriarch then declares that he no longer needs to pretend and admits that he was indeed injured. The old Chang Feng is stunned by the sudden confession from the old master of evil. The loyalty of the three eldest brothers drops by 5% after the old master's confession. In a stern tone, he says this does not mean they can lift a finger against their master. The three eldest disciples widen their eyes in shock at the old man's tone. Suddenly, the peak power card is activated. The three eldest brothers suddenly spit ketchup as they are struck by a gust of wind. The sect's enemies are also hit, and are sent flying, except for the young Ci. The power unleashed by the master is so great that stones fly, and the three brothers lie on the ground spitting ketchup. The master shouts that this disciple is to blame for everything, while the three remain motionless on the ground. Xia Yuana, on her knees, is the only one unharmed, watching the scene wide-eyed and silent. The master, emanating orange energy and sparkling, declares that being at his peak feels incredible. He begins to fly while emitting this strong light, his hair billowing in the wind. A massive whirlwind of flames rises from the ground, soaring to the heavens dramatically. The whirlwind of flames exceeds the barrier's limits and shatters it, resembling a volcano. Cha Feng is shocked to see the shockwave destroy the mountain's barrier. The subordinates wonder how a weakened old man could release such a powerful shockwave. The three disciples who were betraying the master reconsider, kneeling and begging Ji for forgiveness. The master points his glowing finger at them, and declares they deserve punishment for disobeying his orders. A shockwave is unleashed by the patriarch, sending the three flying upon impact. As they are flung away, Master Ji declares he will deal with them later. Ji notices that 29 minutes remain with the card's power, and feels it was quick to teach them a lesson. Observing the thousands of cultivators and experts, he knows he must handle them. He uses a burst to ascend to the skies and test how strong the enemies have become over the last month. He activates the Dharma body technique, the avatar of 100 tribulations knowledge. A fiery figure clad in armor appears around Ji Tiandao. Everyone is astounded by the advanced technique used by Ji and shouts to stop him. They notice that Dharma surrounds the old Ji Tiandao and that this is his most powerful ability. The enemies recognize this as Ji's strongest technique, the 8-leaf avatar of 100 tribulations knowledge. They all summon their avatars to shield themselves. One enemy remarks that the move consumes a lot of energy, and they only need to hold out for a while. However, at the exact moment he says this, several experts are brutally defeated. Lu Zhou knows this is Ji Tiandao's strongest ability, and he had to use it right at the beginning of the fight. After all, once the card's time expires, it disappears, which is why he is using his power to the fullest. Old Chang Feng is shocked, wide-eyed, and astonished by such power. Ji says that since his enemies love swords so much, he will use one too, summoning a magical sword. The disciples realize this is one of the most powerful divine techniques, called imperfect divine intervention. Duan Musheng, injured, observes this display of absolute power from his master in shock. Xing remembers that he wanted to learn the moves of the divine sword, but his master never taught him. Ming Shirin reflects that the master, in addition to using the avatar, is effortlessly utilizing the divine intervention. Zhao Yu notices that, moreover, the power of the attacks is multiplied by the influence of his avatar. Seeing their master use divine intervention and his avatar, they realize they were mistaken. Cha Feng orders a retreat, as the power of the sword will be multiplied because of the avatar. He says that if the 10 of them don't retreat, they'll be severely injured and notes that Ji is stronger than ever. Chan states that a month ago, the 10 experts didn't have the difficulties they're facing now. Chan Feng reinforces his belief that Ji Tianao sustained an injury in the previous battle. Master Ji Tianao then prepares an attack with his divine sword and avatar. The strike, amplified by the avatar's power, is unleashed as a massive wall of flames. This abundant wall of flames hits Changfeng's subordinates, who are defeated. The attack, in addition to annihilating the enemies, also destroys the mountain, splitting it in half. Meanwhile, Chan Feng escapes the strike by flying over the mountain, avoiding being hit. A month ago, the old man was unable to use other abilities while his avatar was active. The enemy realizes he's using his supreme abilities as though fighting for his life. And Chan Feng notices that, despite all this, the wicked old man seems to be fighting relaxed. Hearing his enemy's words, Ji Tianao confirms that he is indeed very calm now. Lu Zhou realizes that the word peak is fitting, as every one of his abilities is enhanced to the maximum. He notes that the effect truly lives up to the name of the peak form experience card. Meanwhile, the subordinates are hit by various strikes and plan to retreat like the 10 experts. All his expert enemies try to retreat by flying into the skies while Ji Tianao watches. Lu Zhou knows he must use these cards sparingly, as he only has 3 of them. Thus, he decides to end this quickly, and Ji Tianao addresses someone attempting to flee. He activates the Soul Pursuit ability and declares that his enemies are too slow. Duan Muxing is amazed to see his master using his powerful divine ability. This ability allows one to appear anywhere in the blink of an eye. Ming Shirin tells his third eldest brother that it's over and that they should also retreat. His brother is stunned by the continuous use of abilities and the use of a supreme skill. Duan Mu questions Yin if they really should flee. Zhao wonders why the master allowed himself to be insulted and betrayed if he possessed such powerful abilities. Yu asserts they cannot flee, and Xia Yuana insists they must stay where they are. The youngest sister says that with the Soul Pursuit ability active, they'll never escape. The old man's 3 disciples realize he had been deceiving them all along. They wonder if, perhaps, the master was tired of his routine and wanted a change of pace. Old Chang Feng flees, flying enveloped in energy at an extremely high speed. Chang expends a lot of energy using a divine ability to escape but believes he is safe. Suddenly, completely out of nowhere, he hears Ji Tianao behind him saying he has found him. Behind the old man, Ji says he's been waiting for him and mocks the fact that he made it that far. Superior in this situation, Ji Tianao asks Chang where his arrogance from a minute ago is now. Chang tells him not to overdo it, as he used 3 divine abilities of the Tribulation realm consecutively. The old man asks the wicked master if he thinks using the Soul Pursuit is that simple. He sees Ji preparing the ultimate attack, the knowledge of 100 tribulations, again and is shocked. In an extremely superior and arrogant manner, old Ji Tianao says he only knows supreme attacks. Old Chang Feng is then completely struck by the avatar attack of Master Ji. Chan knows that only experienced people can wield the 8 lotus leaves of the avatar. He also notices that the leaf is undergoing transformation and will soon reach its peak of 10 leaves. Chan possesses the 7-leaf lotus, which is vastly inferior. Moreover, Ji is wielding the celestial sword. Taking the blow head-on, The old Chan Feng is incredulous to see Ji using unlimited supreme attacks. He screams loudly and desperately for the old Ji Tiandao to stop, but Ji says he can no longer stop. The 100 Leaves avatar begins to wreak havoc wherever it passes, destroying everything. Lu Zhou notices he still has some time left with the peak experience card. He concludes that he doesn't need to chase his enemies, and should save his energy for his disciples. Chang is reduced to ashes, and finally, he completes the main quest, resetting his merit points to 0. Lu considers that if he eliminates more people after the card's effect ends, it will create chaos. The main quest is then updated, and his new objective is to discipline his disloyal disciples and subjugate them. His first goal is to raise C's loyalty to 80%, and the second is to punish the 3 disloyal disciples. Lu is incredulous at the system for not rewarding him after defeating thousands of enemies. The system explains that it provided the cards because Ji was too weak, and the second was to increase his power. The third reminder from the system is that the experience card has expired, and he reverts to his original form. Lu reflects on how good it felt to be that formidable and wonders when he will reach that level again. He knows the cards don't represent his true strength, and that he wouldn't be able to defeat anyone in his current form. Lu understands he must remain calm and collected and decides to confront his disciples by calling Ci. He orders her to rise, and Ci Yuaner, now at 65% loyalty, obeys and stands as instructed. Lu notices that the loyalty of the 3 disloyal disciples has increased but is still insufficient. The old Ji Tianao says he is tired and asks the young Ci Yuaner for help. Smiling, the girl calmly assists her master without complaining, helping him stand up. Shin comments that Yin put him in a tough spot, to which Yin replies he couldn't have known about the master's injury. Yu mocks her brother, saying his analysis was flawed and the master was not injured. Ming Shirin claims he accounted for everything except this minor detail, which was impossible to foresee. When questioned further, Yin suggests the master must have been tired and wanted to try something new. Yu proposes they flee, but Yin says it's impossible after witnessing Ji's capabilities. They dismiss Yu's suggestion as absurd after seeing the master repeatedly use supreme techniques. It is a beautiful day on the Royal Court Mountain, where the waterfall flows into the lake surrounding the house. In the temple, Ji asks Ci how long she has been on the mountain, and she replies that it has been 5 years. In disbelief at the 5 years, Lu Zhou wonders how Ji Tianao accepted monsters as disciples. The old man, sipping his tea, asks the young girl if she knows what she did wrong. Ci Yuaner begins to whimper, affirming her loyalty and claiming she doesn't listen to her brothers. Master Ji Tianao reassures her, saying that's not what he is referring to. He recalls the day she left the mountain and stole books, and Lu wonders what reason she could have had to do so. When questioned, she says her brother told her about a black scroll that dictates who is a worthy disciple. Lu Zhou cannot access any memories about this scroll and questions Ci further about it. She explains it is a list comprised of evil cultivators, and the brothers and sisters are on it. Ci Yuaner adds that the master himself is ranked first on the Black Scrolls list. The old master Ji Tianao says it is his fault for not teaching the girl well enough. The young disciple Ci Yuaner wonders what is wrong with her master. The wicked master Ji declares that Ci is his favorite disciple and asks her not to commit any evil acts. She obeys, and soon the old man orders her to rise, and she complies. Laughing, the girl says her master is the best and offers to massage his shoulders. He realizes that despite the wicked disciples, at least one is loyal, and they narrowly avoided turning evil as well. Lu knows that although she is cunning and mischievous, the girl is still simple and can be corrupted. The system notifies Lu Zhou of an unread message, and while sipping his tea, he checks it. He is notified that Ci Yuaner's loyalty has reached 80%, and he earns 100 merit points. Based on his life experience, Lu knows it is Ji's fault that his apprentices turned out to be evil. Having been in corporate life in his past life, Zhou knows that when subordinates are pressured, they react. Old Ji Tianao orders the young girl to fetch her 3 elder brothers and bring them back. The master Tiandao's 3 wicked apprentices kneel and beg for forgiveness from the old man. He knows they need to raise their loyalty level because, at this point, they can still betray Ji. Yu says she was confused and, since joining the sect, never intended to betray her master, pleading for forgiveness. Duanwu states that he has served his master for over 100 years and begs to be spared. Yin says that in 60 years, he has never disobeyed him, but he was ignorant this time and implores forgiveness. Master Ji Tiandao, with his back turned to his apprentices, merely sighs at this scene. His wicked disciples are shocked by their master's lackluster reaction. The master calls the 3rd eldest brother and asks his ranking on the Black Scroll. The 3rd brother responds that he is ranked 18th on the Black Scroll. The 4th brother is questioned and responds that he is ranked 25th. Sister Zhaoyu says she is fortunate to be ranked 20th. The master says that having their names on a black scroll is not a source of pride and reprimands them. Lu Zhou wonders if he might be at the top of the list, but he doesn't care if he's mistaken. The old patriarch says that since the disciples recognize their mistakes, they must change that. The three, still kneeling and begging for forgiveness, ask the master how they can change. The old wicked patriarch calmly says that no evil should be done from now on. He asks if his wicked disciples can accomplish this. The three elder brothers are shocked and, without a reaction, question what Ji just said. Shouting their obedience to the master, the disciples fail to comprehend what is happening. He states that his only mistake was teaching cultivation techniques, but not teaching them how to behave. Ji punishes them with the task of guarding the mountain without a shield, sparing them if the repairs succeed. Knowing that the shield's repairs will take about 10 years, he deems it a fitting punishment. Restricting their freedom and forbidding them from leaving the mountain is better than eliminating them. Duan Muxing and Mingxirin simultaneously state they will obey their master. The old man says that Zhao Yu must stay at the foot of the mountain during its repair. She asserts she will follow the master's orders without objection but mentions she has something to say. Shocked by the idea of paying for their crimes, she questions what crimes those might be. She acknowledges that, having followed Ji's teachings for so long, they cannot distinguish good from evil. He then asks Xia Yuana what good and evil are. The youngest sister, Xia Yuana, says that helping people is good and hurting them is evil. Agreeing and praising her answer, old Ji Tian now asks for the third brother's opinion. Duanmu responds that charity is good, but killing and stealing are bad. Approaching his disciple, old Ji Tian now calls Mingxi attention. The fourth disciple replies that helping people and one's country is good, and aiding villains is bad. Ji says the answers are superficial and states that, in life, a person does not need to serve their country or help others. He concludes his thought by saying one does not need to please anyone but must not blame oneself. The disciples realize their master is different from who he used to be. After all, a month ago, Ji told them to eliminate anyone who annoyed them, and now he says the opposite. Yu understands she should not hold guilt within herself, and says she will eliminate those who insulted the master. Ji remarks that his words apparently were not heard correctly, and upholds his punishment. Lu notes that the problem of good and evil will not be resolved easily and that their loyalty must rise to 60%. Ji Tianao says the past doesn't matter, but if they repeat their mistakes, he will not spare them again. The master says he will protect them because they joined him, and their loyalty rises by 10%. Upon completing the mission to punish the wicked disciples, he earns 100 merit points. Lu Zhou notices that their loyalty increased slightly after these talks about forgiveness. Ji imagines his disciples must be surprised by his drastic change in attitude. Looking at the horizon after sending his disciples away, he notices them disappearing. Opening the system, Lu Zhou realizes that after experiencing his peak, his body feels weaker. Shocked by the 200 merit points, he notices a lottery that consumes 50 merit points. Suspecting that the lottery might be a scam, the protagonist opens the shop. He discovers that he can even purchase avatars, and the system explains how they work. Ji is shocked by the absurd price of the avatars, with the cheapest costing 300 points. He recalls the Supreme Myriad, an avatar that only exists in legends and is incredibly powerful. Observing it in the system, he imagines that this avatar is probably just a myth. Grounded in reality, he decides to participate in the lottery, which the system initiates. After spending 50 merit points, he wins a reversal card in the lottery. Ji Tiandao is surprised and delighted to see that the cost of the fee was low in exchange for something so valuable. With 150 points remaining, he decides to save them to purchase an avatar and improve his cultivation level. He knows he must surpass his body's tempering and reach enlightenment before mastering the apprentice class avatar. However, since he can buy avatars through the system, he doesn't need to face this bottleneck. He requests to see more quests to earn additional merit points. His secondary quest is to subjugate Shu Honggong and shift the balance of evil. Subjugating the eighth disciple means finding him, and with his current cultivation, that would be foolish. He keeps in mind that he must consider his actions carefully and avoid being impulsive. Even while punished, the three disciples, now aware of the truth, pose a risk to the master. He knows only CI would never betray him. After all, she is the youngest and most loyal. He can also teach her the truths of life. The protagonist Ji Tian now, still holding a reversal card, knows he needs to use it soon. The disciples decide to return to the Evil Sky Pavilion. Meanwhile, at the Tiger Crest Gang's headquarters, we see a cave-like setting. The henchmen report that reinforcements were sent to the mountain due to the intense battle and the avatar. A man on an ice throne questions his subordinates about the nature of this avatar. One of the henchmen says the avatar had 8 lotus flowers, a golden glow, and was 30 meters tall. The gang leader is startled and immediately recognizes it as Master Ji. Completely shocked, he begins to question what he should do about this. Meanwhile, at the Evil Sky Pavilion, we see a temple with a spiraling light above it. Inside a magic circle, sitting cross-legged, is our protagonist Ji Tianao. He notes that he has 613 days of life left, and that the card grants him 300 more days. He knows he needs to learn new techniques. Lu Zhou imagines that Ji's situation might be karma for how he treated people. He also understands that a man's degree of wickedness is tied to his cultivation techniques. The young Xia Yuana requests to speak with the master, and he grants her entry to the room. Surprised and happy, the young disciple comments that he looks younger again. Patting her head, the master remarks that the girl has learned to persuade as well. She says her master is amazing and the only one capable of handling the 10 top experts alone. She then questions why her master didn't punish the brothers when they made mistakes. Lu Zhou never imagined this little girl could harbor such dangerous thoughts. The master instructs young Xia Yuana to forget everything he said earlier. She obeys her master, and he asks what's troubling her, encouraging her to speak. Xia recalls a promise her master made to her, and asks if she should forget that too. Lu wonders if the old man made a promise to her, as he lost his memories upon inhabiting Ji's body. Ji Tian now asks his disciple about the promise. She says he promised to give her the jade horsetail duster once she reached the divine court realm. He doesn't remember the promise but knows the item is celestial and enhances a cultivator's power. However, since he transmigrated into Ji's body, he lost his items and wonders how he will give it to her. Ji Tian now tells his youngest disciple to forget that promise as well. He asks Xia Yuana not to feel disappointed. He assures her he will give her another celestial class item, explaining that the duster is used by old men. The disciple then thanks her master Ji Tian now with eyes full of admiration. Ji assigns Xia the mission of dealing with the orthodox cultivators observing the mountain. The girl says she will handle the situation and immediately runs out of the temple. 10 minutes pass, and the system notifies him of the defeat of 2 villains, granting him 20 merit points. He realizes that the system rewards the master when disciples complete missions. At the end of Xia Yuana's mission, her master reaches 300 merit points. Lu Zhou asks the system to purchase the Taiji avatar at apprentice rank. The system notifies him that his purchase of the apprentice level avatar has been completed. In the body tempering realm, cultivators train their physique, multiplying their abilities. And old Ji Tian now makes a breakthrough into the mystical enlightenment realm through the tempering realm. Lu opens his profile and sees the details, including his cultivation base, which is the mystical enlightenment realm. Lu realizes that a 2-power transformed avatar costs 1000 merit points, and he becomes irritated by this. Zhou notes that reaching the level of the old Ji will be difficult, as there is no technique he can currently practice. He wonders if he should practice the ancient cultivation techniques to evolve. In the old man's mind, there are numerous techniques from his disciples, including their advantages and disadvantages. However, few are suitable for him, and his former techniques no longer fit due to his old and weak body. He decides to wait longer before training his techniques. Noticing that his merit points have stopped increasing, he assumes Xia has completed her mission. He concludes that he must assign his disciples more missions like this one. Knowing that the disciples accumulate points for him, Lu Zhou decides to make good use of them. Suddenly, someone who had been observing the old man bursts into the temple room. A man with a topknot enters aggressively, draws a sword, and strikes. Attacking while old Ji Tian now has his back turned, the man thinks he has caught him. The old man asks what his eldest disciple, Zhou Jifeng of the Celestial Sword Sect, is doing there. Jifeng halts his attack in shock and asks how the old man recognized him from behind. Lu Zhou notes that the attacker is a skilled expert, and wonders if he should shout for help. The system notifies him that a critical strike card has finally been activated. Shocked and sweating, Jifeng lunges forward and stabs his master straight in the chest. However, he realizes Ji is not defeated by the strike and questions how this is possible. In a superior position, looking down at Jifeng, Ji asks if he wants to continue. Zhou Jifeng falls backward and remarks on the vast difference in their power. Lu knows that someone in the Enlightenment realm stands no chance against the Divine Court realm expert. He also knows that Jifeng is a vengeance fanatic and tells him to stop overestimating himself. Preparing another attack, Jifeng accuses Ji of killing his master and seeks revenge. Suddenly, Xia Yuana appears, intercepting the attack, and asks how Zhou dares ambush Ji. After the young disciple deflects the blow, Jifeng is sent flying back, while Ji Tianao remains untouched. Xia Yuana asks permission to eliminate Zhou Jifeng to quell her master's anger. Wounded, Zhou remarks that the rumors about the 9 apprentices being fierce were true, including the young girl. Ji orders Xia to step back, and Lu feels relieved that the old man's body has survived. He thanks the young girl for appearing, otherwise he would have had to use his peak cards. The system updates Zhou Jifeng's characteristics with the status of an enemy and his cultivation base. A new mission is created by the system to uncover the reason for Jifeng's desertion. It also provides a hint that everything he does could activate a secret mission. The old man acknowledges that Zhou's reason for revenge is plausible but questions why he is pursuing it now. Ji states that Zhou is a prodigy who ascended a new cultivation realm every year, reaching the divine court. He then questions what led Zhou to seek revenge now, which will ultimately result in his downfall. Zhou Jifeng wonders if this is how his story will end. CI asks her master if Zhou is considered a rare prodigy, noting that she reached the divine court at the age of 15. Ji tells her not to interrupt, and then asks if Jifeng knows why he has not been eliminated yet. Zhou urges the old man to just finish him off, saying it doesn't matter whether he kills or tortures him. Ji asks Zhou if he believes Luo Qingfeng is a gentleman, and calls the boy ignorant. He then reveals that Luo Qingfeng was the man responsible for killing Jifeng's father. Jifeng doesn't believe him and demands he stop using Siwia's tricks, insisting he won't fall for them. Ji recounts how he once traveled to Yizhou, where a woman gave birth to a strong boy, and he tried to take the boy as his disciple. The old man says he gave the parents 3 days to think it over, but he had already decided to take the boy. When he returned, the Jiang family had been annihilated, and everything was in flames. Everyone in the cultivation world blamed Ji for the Jiang family's destruction. Due to his reputation, this didn't make much of a difference to his standing. In truth, Qingfeng was the one who destroyed them, but since no one knew that, the blame fell on Ji. Zhou Jifeng refuses to believe Ji Tiandao's story, calling him a liar. The old man reminds him of when he cured him of an illness, leaving him with traces of malicious energy. He also recalls a birthmark on Jifeng's shoulder and other personal details. The protagonist, Ji Tiandao, begins revealing various facts that few people know about Jifeng. Zhou Jifeng is shocked that the old man knows about the birthmark on his shoulder. The old man says he won't reveal the full truth because Jifeng is too young to handle it. When Lu Zhou tells the young man he can leave, he does so strategically. Crying, Zhou says he doesn't believe Ji and won't fall for his dirty tricks. Xia Yuana warns that if he continues slandering her master, she will eliminate him. He is left speechless, reflecting that the real problem is the terrifying little girl, not Ji. Lu Zhou knows he can't be gentle with these spoiled young people. Ji reiterates that Changfeng, Zhou's master, kidnapped the boy and destroyed his family. 30 years ago, Luo advanced to the final stage of the tribulation realm using a method. Ci explains that this method involves consuming a person's energy essence and fusing it with one's own. She asks if she's correct, leaving Zhou Jifeng shocked by the revelation about his master. Ji explains that in the sect, the only one with a cultivation level comparable to Changfeng is Jifeng. Knowing Zhou doesn't want to believe him, Ji advises him to speak with his master's master about it. The master instructs Yuana to escort him out, but she protests, saying it's unfair since he attacked Ji. Ji Tianao tells Xia Yuana not to be presumptuous, and to obey his orders. The wicked little disciple begins escorting Zhou Jifeng out of the Golden Court Mountain. She tells him her master has no reason to lie, especially when he could have just eliminated him. Throwing him with force and anger, she sends him flying out of Ji's temple. Face down on the ground, Zhou Jifeng finds it hard to believe everything that has happened. The secondary quest to uncover the reason for Jifeng's desertion remains incomplete. The old man knows a quest like this takes time and hopes Zhou investigates what he said. Lu notices the girl's strong murderous intent, much like her brother's, influenced by Ji. As he reflects on this, the young Ci questions her master about why he didn't eliminate Zhou. Ji Tianao responds that killing isn't the only way to handle problems. She then asks why he instructed her to eliminate the cultivators around the mountain. However, the old man, impatient, orders her not to argue, and she obeys her master. He reiterates that killing isn't the only solution but acknowledges it is one way to solve problems. The system notifies him that his merit points will decrease due to his disciples' evil actions. He orders the girl to summon her brothers, and she obeys. Lu notices that his disciples' good actions grant him points, while bad actions deduct them, though he doesn't understand the criteria. The 3 older brothers arrive and greet their master as they enter his temple. He questions them about their activities to understand the loss of points. Ian explains that they were following his orders, patrolling around the mountain. Ji Tianao warns them that lying will bring consequences. Ian admits to spotting hunters on the mountain and apologizes for not defeating them. Suspecting they might be spies from orthodox sects rather than hunters, Ian vows to annihilate them. Master Ji Tiandao tells him to stop, and Mingshi Ian questions why. Ji explains that since the barrier isn't repaired, they might just be hunters and instructs Ian to drive them away without killing them. Ian follows the orders, finding it strange that his master, who would have ordered them to kill everyone in the past, is now acting differently. Yu notices the master's newfound gentleness, and asks her brothers if they've observed the change. Ian advises them not to view things naively, suggesting the master might be adopting a new routine. Duan Wuxing says they should simply obey for now without asking too many questions. Lying down, Ji receives notifications of merit points due to his acts of kindness. He also receives devoted veneration, rewarding him with 10x more bonuses than usual. The master is shocked to discover that he can gain points from worshippers, though only once per person. Startled by this revelation, the master calls for Xia Yuan, who quickly appears. Lu Zhou realizes that acquiring worshippers grants him merit points. The old patriarch then asks Xia to inform her brothers to treat people kindly. Shocked by the instruction, she hesitates momentarily but then affirms she will follow his orders. At the headquarters of the Tiger Crest gang, the henchmen receive a letter from the derived Moon Palace. The gang's chubby leader rushes out of his bath, asking what the letter says. The palace master states in the letter that they won't help the chubby leader because Ji annihilated Shimfeng with a single blow. The letter advises the gang leader to hide well, acknowledging he is the weakest among them. The henchmen grow concerned as the gang leader lies on the ground, lamenting in shock. The Tiger Crest gang leader wonders how the master became so strong again. He tells his henchmen not to despair, promising he will protect them all. Suddenly, Master Ji receives 50 merit points for subduing Zhu Honglong. Confused, Lu Zhou wonders why he gained points, given he did nothing to Shu. Opening his inventory through the system, he discovers he now has 244 merit points. Despite finding a way to earn more points, the current amount is still insufficient. Lu Zhou knows these points are only enough for some draws, so he decides to proceed with one. The draw costs 50 merit points and rewards old Ji Tianao with a wizard. Our hero is surprised by the wizard, a unique and permanent mount. The mount resembles a chimera with a lion's body, horns, and a radiant glow. Ji Tianao is astonished by this heavenly-defying prize from a random draw. Lu imagines the old Ji Tianao must have had numerous cultivation techniques, items, and mounts like this. After all, the old man lived for hundreds of years, while Lu now replaces him and finds himself poor. Those unable to use wild beasts as mounts rely on flying swords or carriages. However, nothing is as impressive as a true mount, equivalent to a luxury car. A person's status is elevated by their mount. The stronger the mount, the more prestigious the owner. Back at the mountain, Lu Zhou is surprised when the mount disappears into the void. The four disciples see a magical glow emanating from the mountain's peak in the distance. Surprised by the master's radiant and unusual energy, the disciples pretend not to have noticed anything. Inside the temple, Lu Zhou performs several more draws, earning 1 merit point per attempt but spending 50 each time. Shocked, the old master is left with only 44 points and realizes the draws were a trap. However, he notes that the low cost of 4 draws to acquire a wizard was a bargain for something so valuable. 3 people on horseback approach and spot Jinting Mountain ahead. One of the men recognizes it as the home of the villain who once dominated the cultivation world and kept everyone at bay. An old man asks Lord Steward why Yuana was sent to such an infamous place. Steward explains that the patriarch sent Ci there out of fear of the master, and hopes Ji will aid their family. They discuss the day Ji drove off 10 experts and eliminated Shimfeng with a single blow. They hope he will help the Ci family, believing this will ensure their survival through the calamity. A commanding voice questions the 3 members of the Ci family about their presence on the mountain. They bow, saying, "The Ci family of Anyang offers greetings to Ji Tiandao." Flying in with oppressive energy, Ming Shirin questions the Ci family of Anyang. Duan Wuxing informs his 4th brother, Yin, that the Ci family is the youngest sister's family. With this information, Yin realizes that under the new rules, he must treat the Ci family well and not eliminate them. Ming Shirin extends his hand to the specialist from the Ci family, who is left surprised and speechless. Gently, he asks the men to stand up and be less formal with them. The member of the Ci family suspects this is a trap to subjugate them. With a trembling voice and body still in shock, the man says he doesn't deserve such treatment. Smiling kindly, the 4th brother says that since they are Yuana's family, they are part of them. Extending his hand again, Ming Shirin asks him to relax. The 3 men of the Ci family insist they don't deserve this and decline Yin's request. Changing his tone, the disciple remarks that they seem to prefer a harsher approach, which he then adopts. He orders the men to head to the mountain now so the master can decide their fate. Yin warns his brothers not to judge him, noting how difficult it is to adapt to the master's new gentleness. The disciples inform their master that representatives of the Ci family from Anyang wish to see him. The old patriarch asks which family this is, and they explain it is the family of young Yuan. Lu Zhou recalls the origin and meaning of the Ci surname, which comes from this. While sipping tea, our protagonist orders Yuana's family to enter his temple. As soon as the 3 men step inside, they kneel before the old patriarch Ji. In deep reverence, the 3 members of the Ci family bow on the ground before Master Ji Tiandao. Master Ji reminds them of a rule he established forbidding disciples from contacting their families. Young Yuana remembers the master's order, and says she will send the men away. In tears, the leader of the group begs Ci Yuana, introducing himself as Xian. Lu Zhou knows Yuana's memory is hazy since it has been 5 years since she left her family. In shock, she questions the name Xian, and the man explains that the Ci family and her father are in trouble. Over the years, the girl missed her parents, but the old villain didn't turn her to the dark side. Duan Muxing orders the CI family representatives to stay quiet. Yu coldly says this is no place for crying and threatens to sew their mouths shut if they weren't Yuana's family. The youngest sister, CI Yuana, kneels and calls out to her master, Ji Tiandao. Yin says that since they are the sisters' relatives, they are also part of their family, and it would be cruel not to help them. The other disciples of the old patriarch agree with Mingshi Yin's stance. Seated on his throne and reflecting, the old Ji acknowledges there is some truth in Yin's words. Lu notes that their loyalty has increased by 5%, now nearing 70%. Ji Tianao says it depends on the issue, as the Evil Sky Pavilion doesn't want to get involved unnecessarily. Yin states that if the issue is trivial, they will ignore it, as the master's power is already known to all. The man pleads, explaining that the CI family has been supporting many people in Anyang. He adds that bandits have been robbing and kidnapping people in Anyang, even though the CI family has paid them to stop. Yu dismisses it as just a gang of bandits on mounts and suggests involving the local authorities. The man replies that the local authorities won't help since the bandits are backed by cultivators. Yu knows that under the master's old rules, the pavilion wouldn't interfere in such matters. However, she also knows those rules are outdated, and this involves Yuana's family, the master's favorite. Yin asks the master to let him handle it, saying those who kidnapped young C's family will pay for it. The master knows that with his current strength, interfering in cultivators' affairs could lead to trouble. Ming Shirin requests to be released from his punishment to assist the youngest sister with her family matter. Lu Zhou realizes he can let his disciples handle this and earn merit points in the process. The old patriarch grants Yin permission to handle the situation, noting that Yuana is too young and might lose control. Ming Shirin, the eldest brother, confidently declares he will resolve the issue. The master gives the eldest brother 3 days, surprising him as he considers it too short. Yu remarks that 2 days would be enough for her, given that he is a divine specialist from Jinting. Master Ji Tiandao orders his pupil to leave immediately, and Yin obeys, departing at once. Lu limits the disciple to 3 days to prevent him from gaining too much freedom and causing trouble. After the disciples express their gratitude, the system notifies Ji of gaining 30 points due to their devotion. Additionally, a countdown begins for completing the mission to save the CI family. Our protagonist orders the youngest sister, Yuana, to escort them down the mountain, and she complies. Ji remarks that while Yin loves the world, he always acts wisely and will complete the mission within a day. Duanmu knows the master gave an extended deadline because Yin has matters to attend to in the outside world. The master calls out to the fifth disciple, Yu, who responds to Ji's summons in shock. Old Ji orders her to investigate the Celestial Sword sect, particularly Zhou Jifeng. Confidently, the fifth sister Yu agrees to the task and vows to complete the mission. Ji Tianao says that since Zhou's desertion must be investigated, they need to keep an eye on him. The following day, the Golden Court Mountain awakens to a beautiful morning. The old patriarch, Ji Tianao, relaxes on a chair, sipping a cold drink. After Zhou's failed assassination attempt, everyone considers Ji formidable and ensures no one underestimates him again. Duan Muxing and Xia Yuana guard the mountain's entrance to prevent further attacks on their master. Xia Yuana questions whether the fourth eldest brother can truly help them. Relaxing, Master Ji Tianao reassures the young girl not to worry. Duanmu defends his brother, stating that despite being playful, he takes his mission seriously. If he forgets his task due to his playful nature, Duanmu vows to punish him before the master does. Yuana mentions the seventh brother, and Duanmu asks her not to bring up traitors in front of the master. Lu Zhou knows that the seventh brother was cunning and excelled at devising brilliant plans. The master comments that an intelligent man is also crafty and enjoys toying with people's emotions. Suddenly, a messenger bird soars through the sky, and CI remarks that it carries a letter from Sister Yu. This messenger bird is no ordinary creature, having been raised with spiritual energy on the mountain. In a blazing dive, the bird drops a letter from Yu into C's hands. The master orders young Yuana to read the letter, and she obeys. The letter states that since she defeated the 10 experts in Chifeng, the sword sect has been in chaos. The members are fighting among themselves, and Jifeng failed to become the sect leader. Yu suspects the former leader is attempting to advance his Dao cultivation realm. Spying during the night, Yu discovered that Jifeng is growing disloyal to his sect. Finding Yu's pace too slow, the master orders them to inform her to act more swiftly. Duanmu questions why they are helping Jifeng, given that he is an enemy and a traitor. Lu Zhou holds back, knowing he must avoid saying too much until their loyalty reaches 80%. The system notifies him that Yin has completed his mission, rescuing the CI family and defeating bandits. Shocked, Lu Zhou is surprised to gain 1,870 merit points through Yin's efforts. Now, he has 2,904 merit points. Meanwhile, the fourth eldest brother's letter arrives. Yuana begins reading the letter, in which Ian states he defeated all the bandits and rescued the CI family. Ian reveals that the cultivator behind the bandits is connected to the 8th Brothers gang. The master realizes the first part of the letter details the mission, while the second explains Ian's absence. CI Yuaner becomes irritated upon learning that the 8th eldest brother is involved in this matter. Xing believes someone is merely using the 8th brother's name, as he is in the divine court and wouldn't bother with trivialities. Reflecting, the master says that whether involved or not, it's best to let Ian investigate. Afternoon arrives at the Celestial Demon's Pavilion, and Ji Tian now decides to purchase 2 avatars from the store. He spends 1,000 points on a fused power avatar, leaving him with another 1,000 points. Ji feels the surge of energy within his body and notices his cultivation base evolving. From the 5 openings of the mystical realm, Ji now breaks through the 4th, with impressive progress speed. Lu Zhou also decides to buy 2 reversal cards, spending another 1,000 points. He uses both cards immediately, and a powerful energy spreads over the Golden Court Mountain. Ji now has the body of a 600-year-old, and knows no one else on Earth could benefit from such a reversal experience. Seeing 2,000 points vanish in an instant, he wonders if there's anything else he should do with them. Then he decides to conduct 2 draws, spending another 100 merit points without mercy. Carrying out a few more draws, Ji Tian now wastes his merit points and receives nothing in return. Lu realizes that the merit points obtained from missions are not as abundant as he imagined. After all, the cheapest items and weapons in the store cost 1,000 merit points. He decides to let his pupils complete more missions so that he can acquire more points and accumulate them. He knows that outside the mountain, given his current level, it is dangerous, but inside it he is protected by his pupils. However, even so, he needs to keep an eye out for possible betrayals by his disciples. The old patriarch calls for Xia Yuaner, who quickly appears in the hall, ready and waiting. He asks her to bring the 4 treasures of the study from the Evil Sky Pavilion. The girl says that she always writes and asks if he is going to write on his own today. He becomes irritated, as he does not like a little girl telling him what he should or should not do. Quickly, she goes to fetch the treasures and returns in an instant, bringing what the master ordered. She grinds the ink for her master without him even asking. In his past life, Lu Zhou enjoyed practicing calligraphy and won several prizes at school. On the sheet, he begins to write the names of all his disciples in order of age. He writes the names from top to bottom, in the order that Ji took them in as the 9 pupils of evil. Even the youngest pupil was from the divine court, and he wonders about the base of the oldest pupil. He questions how Shihai and Shangrong allowed Ji to exist, as they are stronger than him. Lu says that Ji should know that his pupils were so wild they could end up destroying him one day. He wonders if Ji had any hidden cards up his sleeve when he started teaching his pupils. Unfortunately, that part of his memory was lost, and Lu questions the items that Ji kept hidden. Xia Yuaner, impressed with the master's beautiful handwriting, asks why he wrote her name. He says he is introspective and reflects on the fact that he taught 9 pupils to do evil. Ji Tiandao, the old master, says that perhaps in the past he was wrong. Lu knows he did nothing. It was Ji Tiandao, and now he has to make up for Ji's mistakes. Little Yuana says that he could indoctrinate thousands of pupils in the Evil Sky Pavilion, and no orthodox sect would dare face them. After all, they would have a giant army. Noticing Yuana's villainous excitement, Patriarch Ji Tiandao calms her down with a pat on the head. Ji Tiandao questions Xia Yuaner about why she keeps thinking about eliminating people. Asking if she forgot what he said, she replies that she would never forget an order. He reminds her that eliminating is not the only way to solve problems, though sometimes it is necessary. And he questions if there is any reason to eliminate unarmed people who lived ordinary lives. He says that members of the CI family could have been wiped out if the bandits were like them in the past. Ji says they deserve to die, but they only sought money and did not kill anyone. When questioned about her goal, she says it is to reach the highest cultivation base and become immortal. Xia Yuana asks her master if he will continue recruiting disciples, and he is shocked. Lu seems to have understood and asks Xia what reason she thinks led him to take on 9 pupils. She answers that it's because each one of them is a genius in their cultivation, and Ji asks her to look at the paper. Xia Yuaner begins to carefully read the names on the papers, looking for some new information. Master Ji Tian now recites what appears to be a poem for the girl, and she says it is very beautiful. She notices that each character is found in the pupils' names and asks if that was the reason he recruited them. Xia Yuana observes that there is one more character. Sure, in the old patriarch Ji Tiandao's poem. She reflects that if Ji's reason for recruiting pupils was this poem, then he chose them just for their names. However, this world was not the same as his past life, and he questions how Ji knew about the poem. Lu Zhou considers the possibility that Ji Tiandao is a dimension traveler just like him. An unknown green energy swoops down into an equally unknown city. The citizens wonder what has come through the air and say it must be the immortal. We see Mingxirin flying, saying that he finally left the party and will return to the mountain. Looking down at the city, he considers everyone ignorant ants and decides to find a girl. Ming-Shirin decides to let it go. After all, the master created a new routine and he will have to follow it. He then comments that he is loaded with minerals he recovered from the bandits he eliminated. Ian begins throwing gold and money to the people in the city. After all, he decided to be generous this time. Everyone thanks him for throwing money from the sky as if he were a living saint. Tian now is pleased with Ian's results, which grant him merit points. At Tiger Peak, Ming-Shirin comments that, despite being magnificent, the view is shrouded in mist. He observes the view from high above Tiger Peak, perched on a tree branch. A henchman tells the leader of the tiger gang that his elder brother has come to visit him. The subordinate mentions that a cultivator outside the lair wants to see him. The 8th senior brother has just woken up and orders his underling to send the person away. He comments that after struggling so much to sleep, he finally managed to have a good night's rest. His underling tries to insist on the cultivator's words, but the boss orders him to be silenced. Entering the lair without permission, Ming-Shirin asks if his brother is afraid of something. Startled, the brother gets up, having thought it was his master trying to eliminate him, and feels relieved. The chubby man asks Ian if he has decided to join him, and tells him not to call him elder brother anymore. Ming-Shir then orders his 8th senior brother to shut up, as he is speaking nonsense. He asks if his brother wants him to stay in this stinking place with him, and Ian says he will never do that. With a harsh tone of voice and a piercing gaze, Ming-Shirin orders everyone to leave the premises. Intimidated, the chubby man allows his brother to sit on his throne, and sends his subordinates away. Ian says he is in the lair because of a task, and his brother interrupts him by asking about the task. His brother questions if he is involved with the kidnappings of the CI family of Anyang. Shocked and sweating cold, the big guy says he has nothing to do with that. Making a promise with his fingers, he swears he has nothing to do with it. The chubby man says that no matter how bad he is, he would never do anything to the younger sister's family. Ian says that the mounted bandits worked for a cultivator who mentioned Tiger Peak, and the chubby man says he has offended many people and one of them must have tried to frame him. Ming-Shirin, uninterested, says it's none of his business and that he should go see Master Ji. The chubby brother asks Ian to pretend he saw nothing and asks if the master is hurt. Shouting at his brother, angry, Ming-Shirin tells him not to talk nonsense, and he questions how a traitor like him dares to say such things and tells him to kneel. Meanwhile, the old man receives 200 points for taming Zhu Honggong and feels proud of Ian. Zhu kneels before his 4th senior brother and asks for forgiveness, admitting he was wrong. Ian asks how Shu can fail to show respect to the master after he defeated 10 experts. Mingshi, besides warning Zhu Honggong, also reinforced the image that the base is stronger. Still kneeling on the ground before his elder brother, Honggong hands an envelope to Ian. He says it is a letter from the 7th senior brother, and that his words should clarify something. The 7th brother said that the master tried to ascend to a higher realm 200 years ago, and failed. They said Ji was injured by the top 10 experts, and questioned how he regained his cultivation base. Ian questions if the 7th brother was trying to say that the master used some kind of secret drug for that. The 8th senior brother, Shu Honggong, states that this was the 7th brother's plan. Shu tells Ian that both of them know the 7th base is not weaker than the master's, and he questions why he does not dare do anything against the master, even after so many years. Ming-Shirin comments that nobody knows how many hidden cards Jitian now possesses. Shu comments that no matter how many cards he has up his sleeve, sooner or later he will die. Ian notes that everything he said was not in the letter and asks where he got all of it. Shu Honggong tells his 4th senior brother that it is wrong to insult him in that manner. And with a bizarre and hungry look, salivating, he says that he has a brain. Insulting his brother again, Ian asks if the one who told him that was the 6th sister, or the 2nd brother. Frightened, Zhu says he discovered everything on his own, and Ian says it's fine if he doesn't want to talk. He says he thought the same as what was written in the letter, but he holds great respect for his master. Ian comments that the master is cultivating in isolation and will not leave the mountain, and fortunately, the old patriarch did not order them to eliminate Shu Honggong. Kneeling abruptly and humbly, the chubby man thanks Mingshi Ian for his mercy. He asks Shu to find out about those mounted bandits and inform the master, and he says he will do so. Flying away from the Tiger Lair mountain, Ian departs toward the mountain. Shu Honggong's subordinate notices him trembling and asks if his boss is all right. The chubby man says he is fine and asks them not to panic and to remain calm. Saying it was a close call, Zhu Honggong comments that the 7th brother was right. Inside the Golden Court Mountain, we see Master Ji Tiandao's temple. Lu says that the meridians are old, the Dantian and Qixi lack vitality, making it difficult to gather energy. Moreover, he thinks that having his disciples' cultivation techniques in his mind doesn't help much. He imagines that these are physical reasons. After all, the meridian is aging, among other things. The fact that Ji became old and weak caused him to lose respect and be betrayed by his disciples. Lu Zhou comments that it is hard for a 20-year-old to pretend to be an old, idle, and weak man. After all, it would be strange to appear with so much energy in such an old body. With 1,000 merit points, Lu thinks it will be difficult to return to youth at the current rate of accumulation. The defeat of the bandits and the people's adoration of Yin made him earn many points. Old Ji Tiandao shouts for Xia Yuaner, who quickly appears to listen to her master. He asks what is going on in the world, and she says she does not know because she spends too much time on the mountain. She says the seventh brother would know. After all, he has an information network around the entire world. Xia Yuaner wonders why, all of a sudden, the master is concerned about the outside world. The master says there is a station in the nearest city where they exchange cultivation information. She asks Xia Yuaner to go to that city to gather information, and the girl becomes excited. He questions the girl's reason for all her joy. Could it be that staying on the mountain makes her sad? She says she gets bored, and the master tells her not to eliminate anyone there nor reveal her identity. Then, the younger sister asks what she should do if someone intimidates her. Ji tells her to go and not ask too many questions, while Lu wonders who would dare intimidate her. After sending his disciple on the mission and seeing her fly away, Lu asks himself when he will be able to do that. Flying high in the skies, the girl says she will obey the master's orders. She knows that although Jiting is home to villains, it does not rule out the possibility of assassins like Jifeng. Duan Wuxing tells his master that he repaired 3 formations, but there are still 5 missing. At this rate, Xing fears he won't be able to finish the task of repairing the formations by himself. Ji says that he ordered him to repair the formations as punishment, and Xing says he understands. Lu reflects that he punished them by making them fix the formations, and yet they still came to complain. Disciplining disciples is the same as managing subordinates in his past life. Ji says that if he can't finish in 1 year, then in 2 or 3 he will still not be spared from the work. Sweating coldly, Duan Wuxing says he was very lazy and asks his master Ji for forgiveness. Watching his disciple fly off to repair the formations, he wonders when he will be able to fly like that. Quickly opening the system, Lu Zhou decides to do another draw. Recklessly, he conducts 10 draws and loses them all, thus losing 500 points. Lu Zhou asks the system to be less of a thief and stops stealing his merit points. He then decides to buy a reverse card with his remaining points, and after using the card, he has 4 merit points left. After spending all his money, he wonders what to do with this useless old body. In his past life, the elderly could go to the park to play chess or walk their dogs. Suddenly, the mission to investigate Jifeng's desertion concludes, granting Ji 200 points. Jifeng's hostility level is reset to 0. He now has 10% loyalty, and 2 elders are eliminated. Gaining another 200 points, the master is happy and thanks Zhao Yu for the great work. Ming Shirin returns after completing his mission and kneels before his master. Noticing that Yin's loyalty fell to 58%, he is certain something happened. After eliminating the bandits and sending the letter, Yin went to Tiger Peak to see the traitor Zhu Honggong. The master remains silent, suspecting his own disciple. Yin says that every word he spoke is true. After all, he would not dare lie to his master. Lu Zhou praises Mingshi, who thanks him, but the master indicates that there is still more to discuss. The master questions him about the investigation into the capture of his junior sister's family, and Mingshi reveals that he discovered Zhu Honggong was not involved. Lu Zhou nods in acknowledgement. He then asks if there is anything else Mingshi wishes to report. Surprised, Mingshi wonders how Lu Zhou knows so much about what happened. Lu Zhou also inquires if that was all Mingshi discussed during his visit to the 8th disciple. Mingshi wonders if his master has spiritual eyes and thinks he should hide his rebellious thoughts. Telling his master he said nothing more. Lu Zhou states that if Mingshi has nothing to add, he will not be forced to speak, then commends his work. However, the 4th disciple takes the opportunity to ask about the whereabouts of his junior sister, but his master says it is none of his business. Respectfully, Mingshi says he understands and bows to show his obedience, but Lu Zhou notices his loyalty has diminished. He also suspects Mingshi might be harboring negative thoughts about his leadership. Then, Lu Zhou asks again if there is anything else Mingshi wishes to reveal. Mingshi kneels and confesses that he has cultivated the blue wood technique to its peak but cannot fully comprehend it. Lu Zhou, analyzing the situation, believes Mingshi is testing his limits because Ji Tianao did not fully teach the techniques, and Mingshi would soon break through. The master states that impatience is the greatest taboo for any cultivator, and reminds him that the last time Mingshi advanced was only 6 years ago. Mingshi remains silent, and his master continues, saying his perception is not good enough and he should not be impatient. Recognizing his lack of perception, Mingshi admits he was foolish not to realize this earlier. He then reveals that he has a fist technique he cannot properly use. Lu Zhou reflects that Mingshi might be suspicious because of Hong Gong while pondering how to guide him despite the three-realm difference. To him, the situation seems as absurd as asking a child to teach an adult something. Mingshi respectfully calls out, awaiting his master's response, and Lu Zhou asks which part he does not know how to use. Mingshi explains that when using it, he feels stuck and unable to unleash its full power, and Lu Zhou asks Mingshi to demonstrate the technique outside the gazebo. Mingshi agrees with his master, then stands up and, with a swift movement, kicks the ground. He then flies to the highest point using his energy. Mingshi begins a sequence of strikes in the air, finishing with a punch so powerful that it creates a gust of wind, striking his master. Lu Zhou, surprised, wonders how Mingshi dared to attack him. However, Mingshi ends his movement by breaking a rock with a punch, causing pieces of stone to fall to the ground. The fourth disciple finally lands on the ground in front of the gazebo. Mingshi then asks if his master can identify the flaw in his punch. Lu Zhou, without even seeing the technique, realized it was too fast. Lu Zhou knows the fist technique was taught by Ji Tiandao, but without the last level scriptures, Mingshi's power remains limited. Reflecting that disciples with full knowledge make the master unnecessary, he states that Mingshi has perfected the technique and sees no issues with it. Mingshi is impressed by the response. Lu Zhou raises his hand above Mingshi's head and calls him the fourth disciple, making him tremble in fear, realizing something more serious might happen. Mingshi kneels in fear and says he was wrong, asking for his master's forgiveness. Lu Zhou says he taught him how to cultivate but not how to behave, and his disciple might fool some boys with his tricks, but he cannot use them on him. Mingshi begs for forgiveness, saying he would not dare deceive his master, acknowledging that he has seen through everything and knows all he did with Zhu Honglong. In Mingshi's mind, his master is a terrifying and extremely powerful cultivator. Soon after, Lu Zhou calls the third disciple, who was hiding behind a rock. Duan Muxing steps out from behind the rock and greets his master. Lu Zhou says that since Duan Muxing is there, he should remain outside and watch, asking if he knew he was hiding. Duan Muxing falls to the ground, kneels, and begs his master for forgiveness, and Lu Zhou reflects that Ji Tian now planted terror in the disciples' minds because, if they were villains, they would have already reacted. Lu Zhou says it is good the third disciple is there to help Mingshi with the fist technique and tells them to resolve the issue. The disciples are perplexed, but Duan Muxing promises to help Mingshi solve the problem, though Mingshi wonders why it has to be him, as he is no match for Xing. Lu Zhou, being cunning, would have beaten the two in the past, but instead asked the senior brother to do it, and Duan Muxing grabbed Mingshi's wrist and took him to train. Mingshi then asked him to go easy on him. Meanwhile, at the gazebo, Lu Zhou thought that Mingshi had finally grown suspicious of him. He would find an excuse to fight with Mingshi, forcing him to use an experience card, something Ji Tian now had thanks to the system. This made his 9 disciples and orthodox cultivators fear him. However, Lu Zhou only had 2 peak cards left to use. In the afternoon, Lu Zhou was sitting, napping on a chair. Xia Yuana arrived and said she had spent half a day at Tangji Station and gathered information. Lu Zhou woke up and told her to report. Yuana said that after the master repelled the 10 experts, the sects would no longer accept disciples, and the Celestial Swords sect had fragmented. Lu Zhou asked if there was more. Yuana added that the sects were quiet, except for their brothers, while the leader of a lower sect had ordered an investigation of Jiting Mountain, cautious of the master. Lu Zhou remarked that he had taught many things, which made him a great leader, but even so, he couldn't be touched. Yuana said her master was invincible. She was reprimanded by her master, who told her not to flatter him. Yuana then tried to share some gossip, but her master said he wanted to hear about cultivation. Yuana mentioned that the Huashan faction had been destroyed and a country had been conquered, but Lu Zhou reflected on his student's potential and felt fortunate that she wasn't malicious. 20 minutes later, Lu Zhou told her to bring her senior brothers there, and Yuana agreed. A system notification then appeared, stating that a side mission with Yin Mingshi had been completed, rewarding him with 200 merit points. Xing and Mingshi arrived, with Mingshi's face completely bruised. Lu Zhou reflected that the loyalty of Mingshi and Duan Muxing was below 70%, and only Yuana's loyalty was high. He then called his students. Duan Muxing said that his master could ask for anything, and they would devote themselves entirely to completing the tasks, while Mingshi remained silent. Lu Zhou said that Shui Jifeng had completely deserted the Celestial Sword sect, so Xing should investigate and report everything. Mingshi quickly responded to his master's call. Lu Zhou said he was giving him a very special mission. Since he had been a very bad person in his life, Mingshi should get rid of the nuisances in his sect. Mingshi repeated the part about getting rid of the nuisances. The fourth disciple knelt, explaining that he was extremely weak compared to his first and second brothers. He continued, saying he was no match even for junior sister Tianqing because of her treasures and cultivation, which might have advanced. Lu Zhou admitted it was true, as it was with the weapons they possessed, combined with their weak cultivation foundations, that they had claimed a place in this world. And the reason why Duan Wuxing, Yi Mingshi, and Zhao Yu hadn't left was that Ji Tianao hadn't given them complete weapons and cultivation techniques. Since his first 2 disciples had celestial weapons, but the 8th disciple's foundation was at a lower level compared to Yin Mingshi's. Lu Zhou said that Mingshi would start with the 8th disciple, and his disciple questioned him. His master reflected that the divine court realm had 3 stages: form, control, and Dao transformation, with the latter being the highest. Mingshi said he had gone to Tiger Summit, but the 8th brother was so stupid that he suspected he had been coerced into deserting by the 7th junior brother, and thus didn't deserve to die. His master then remained silent and walked to the gazebo. He told Mingshi to come to him. Frightened, Mingshi called him master, but he went there, trembling. With each step, Mingshi trembled more and more. Lu Zhou asked Mingshi to look him in the eyes, and Mingshi finally looked at his master. Lu Zhou observed that his disciple's eyes were trembling, indicating that he was nervous, along with other signs of fear. Mingshi knelt and begged for forgiveness, speaking of his master's strength and admitting he knew he was no match for him, so his defensive gesture had been instinctive. Lu Zhou thought that he was truly terrified, but he recalled that Ji Tianao had used a brutal disciplinary method with his disciples, applying severe beatings. Fueled by the hope that, one day, they would become strong enough to challenge and kill their master, it was inevitable that things had come to this point. Lu Zhou was not very irritated, and he knew what Mingshi was thinking, so he decided to give him a chance. He handed him a piece of paper containing the final part of the Blue Wood Technique scripture. Lu Zhou then said he was giving him this, and with it, his cultivation base would advance significantly, potentially allowing him to break through to the nascent divine tribulation realm. Mingshi thought that, according to his master's old customs, if he took the paper, his hand would probably be broken, but his master had changed. Mingshi took the paper, thanked him, and declared he would eliminate the useless members of the sect, gaining 10% loyalty and 200 reward points. Lu Zhou told him he could leave, and Mingshi leapt out of the gazebo, visibly happy. Meanwhile, his junior brothers and sisters felt envious. Lu Zhou knew the 2 of them wanted a weapon, but since Ji Tiandao's items were depleted, he hoped his disciples would not disappoint him. Duan Wuxing and Yuan agreed. Xing turned to leave, saying he would repair the formation. Meanwhile, Yuan stayed and said she also wanted to go on a mission. Lu Zhou said she had little experience and would stay with him, while Yuan asked if Zhou Jinfeng's espionage had not been assigned to Zhao Yu. Lu Zhou explained that Zhao Yu was careless and unstable. Although she completed the task 2 days ago, she had not yet returned and therefore could not take on another mission. Yuan asked if her senior sister perhaps no longer wanted to return. She then expressed her irritation, and Lu Zhou simply told her to ignore it. Lu Zhou reflected on Zhao Yu, while Yuan thought that betrayal should not be ignored. He told Yuan to find out news about Zhao Yu in the coming days, and Yuan understood, and her master asked her to leave him alone. Duan Wuxing was walking with Mingshi, commenting on his luck in receiving the final Blue Wood Technique and being spared by the master. Mingshi said he did not know what his master was thinking and wondered if he was overthinking. Xing asked what he meant. Mingshi completed the task, deserving the reward, and decided to test a secret drug from the 7th brother to hide his injuries. Xing commented on Mingshi's courage, and he replied that it was too late to regret. Lu Zhou reflected on Zhao Yu and Mingshi, while Yuan thought Zhao Yu's betrayal should not be ignored, but Lu Zhou focused on cultivation. He believed that with the complete Blue Wood Technique, he would soon reach the peak of the Divine Court and the nascent Divine Tribulation realm, like his senior brothers. However, now that he had achieved it, he felt somewhat confused. Xing commented that after Tianxin's desertion, their master stopped giving out final techniques but made an exception for Mingshi, questioning his fears. Mingshi agreed and asked Xing what he thought. Xing grabbed his shoulder. He said his advice was to complete the tasks the master assigned faithfully. Their master, injured and near the end, would not harm them, and the 10 major sects, after suffering great losses, would not attack the Jinting court, which would serve as their protective shield. Mingshi was surprised and said it made sense. He then declared that his senior brother was a man of great wisdom and that his words were enlightening. The system notified Lu Zhou that he had been rewarded with 200 merit points for Yin Mingshi and Duan Wuxing's loyalty increasing by 5%. Lu Zhou reflected on the control of the old villain and, with 1,000 merit points, wondered if he should wait longer to obtain the 3-flower condensation avatar. He could not wait, as his health was deteriorating, and he wanted to avoid Ji Tiandao's mistakes, but a reversal card cost 500 merit points, which was expensive. So, he decided to try his luck first. He began the draw, which cost 50 merit points and gave 1 luck point, repeating it 23 times and wondering if something was wrong with the probability. He said he still had 754 merit points and would try 2 more times to buy a reversal card. But he kept saying, draw, until he reached a total of 33 draw points. Lu Zhou, with only 104 points left, thought that, thanks for trying, reflected bad luck, not good fortune. He then admitted defeat but said that since he had so few merit points left, he might as well try one more draw. He called for the draw, which cost 50 merit points and 33 draw points. Then, he received a cultivation technique called the 3 Scrolls of the Celestial Scripture, a 3-flower condensation avatar, and 10 reversal cards. Lu Zhou was impressed. He would need to spend 3,000 points on the 3 flowers condensation avatar, 5,000 on the 10 reverse cards, and he also gained the technique. The 3 Scrolls of the Heavenly Scripture. He read the Human Scroll of the Heavenly Scripture, which, when cultivated to its peak, allows one to comprehend life, death, and master transmigration. The following content was confusing, filled with meaningless symbols, and Lu Zhou couldn't understand anything, living up to the name, Heavenly Scripture, which couldn't be read. He thought that the 10 reverse cards could grant about 300 points of life force, meaning he had just gained almost 10 years of life. He then used them, and a great explosion of energy occurred. With a lifespan of 3,000 days, Lu Zhou had never felt such a pleasant sensation of youth. The energy of the 3 flowers condensation avatar boosted his foundation to the Qi refinement and soul formation realm, surpassing his previous strength. He then opened his stats again to observe the changes. Lu Zhou stood up. He then opened the 3 Scrolls of the Heavenly Scripture once more. He wondered if enlightenment was the way to cultivate the Heavenly Scripture technique. Although he couldn't cultivate the techniques, he had the necessary knowledge, marking the first time Ji Tianao heard of this method. Cultivators begin their journey by hardening their bodies, entering the body-tempering realm, and cultivating their tendons, bones, and skin. They break through the stages of mystical enlightenment, advance to the condensation realm, and, after the Brahma Sea, reach the Divine Court realm. A cultivator is considered great upon reaching the Divine Court realm, which has 3 levels: Divine Court, Divine Tribulation, and Celestial Saint, whose practitioners are legends. No one had ever seen these cultivators, and it is said that entering this realm grants immortality, something Ji Tianao was about to achieve before dying in the gazebo. Now that Lu Zhou thought about it, this method of traveling was excellent, so he asked the system to open the missions menu. His main mission was to tame the villainous disciples, with side missions to discipline Zhua Honggong and investigate Zhua Jifeng, carried out by Duan Wuxing. Lu Zhou believed that taming villainous disciples and assigning tasks were essential for merit points, and that the 8th disciple would be easy to tame but still lacked loyalty. Lu Zhou thought the 8th disciple had been incited by the 7th, who sought a position in the world and might have connected with the senior disciples. He was still far from taming the villainous disciples, and only when his strength improved could he handle them and the orthodox cultivators, but his foundation was still weak. The Divine Court Mountain of Jiting remained a target, and since the situation was complicated, he decided to first focus on understanding the Heavenly Scripture. 2 days later, in the derived Moon Palace, a woman was lying down as she said that, "So you should have left the Divine Court Mountain of Jiting a long time ago." The master of the derived Moon Palace was Yi Tianqing, ranked 9th in the Black Roll and the 6th disciple of the world's greatest villain elder, who questioned why she had waited until now. Zuiyu said she wasn't as fortunate as Tianqing, as she had hoped to take something from the old master, but he had been stingy, and ever since Tianqing left, he no longer trusted his disciples. Yi Tianqing began to fly and said she had warned from the beginning, having already told this to her senior sister. Although she joined the sect before Tianqing, there were things she couldn't see. She questioned how many treasures the old man had hidden and said it was a pity they were buried in a grave along with him. Tianqing said she could offer an idea to her senior sister. Zhao Yu asked what idea that would be. Her junior sister said that since the master had always adored the youngest sister, she could use her to test the limits, as he didn't trust the 3rd and 4th seniors. Even if he had used some secret drug and trump cards, he couldn't compare to a living person. Zhao Yu feared threatening the master with her junior sister, believing he would kill her as he did Luo Chanfeng, showing hesitation. Tianxing said she was scared. Yu denied it, but Tianxing insisted and asked if she remembered how that old man had treated them in the past. Zhao Yu said she must be ruthless and understand everything Tianxing said, but acknowledged that if she angered the master, it would mean her death, as not even the eldest senior brother dared to do so. Tianxing said she had been on the mountain for too long, which had clouded her judgment, and questioned who said she would have to do it alone. Zhao Yu tries to speak, but Tianqing continues, saying that she is afraid. The senior brothers and she are still alive, which gives them trump cards, but he is cautious and will not use them easily, though he would not spare their lives. This proves that their trump cards are limited. Moreover, he was getting old, and his sea of qi was drying up. When the time comes, he will be filled with hatred and will use the trump cards, making it more dangerous to stay with him. Zhao Yu agrees, saying he has a point. Tianqing says they need to use a trick to uncover his trump cards because, if he knows they are after them, he will avoid them, and they just need to wait for his death. Zhao Yu thinks that, besides cultivating, her junior sister used cunning to reach her status, being praised by the sixth sister, and that her strength is inferior to hers. Tianqing tells Zhao Yu to stay in the derived Moon Palace and promises to help her when necessary, and Zhao Yu thanks him and apologizes for the trouble. 4 days later, Lu Zhou was reading the human scroll of the celestial scripture, reflecting on mental intelligence and the divine power of a pure, celestial eye. Lu Zhou obtained the summary of the title page, but the rest was confusing and incomprehensible, being 100 times harder than learning classical Chinese writing. However, it is similar to Taoism. Among the hundreds of schools of thought on earth, Yuan shouts from the door, informing him that the master has been isolated for 4 days, and that the fourth brother was there yesterday, but she did not dare call him and asked him to leave. Lu Zhou reflects that, despite being tedious, time passed quickly while reading the celestial scripture, and wonders if the fourth brother mentioned anything. As he exits the room, he says the fourth brother must have encountered problems while cultivating the final part of the blue wood technique. When the master leaves the room, Yuan says that he looks younger. Her master thanks her for the compliment. Lu Zhou explains that his isolation was not only to improve his cultivation but also to take care of his aging body, and he thanks Yuan for her efforts. Yuan says it is her duty as a disciple and believes her master will be the first to reach the mysterious celestial realm in the world of Great Yin. Lu Zhou pats her head and asks if the old third sent any letters. Yuan says he has not sent any letters. Lu Zhou finds it strange that there are no system messages about Duan Wuxing's task and wonders why he has not received any updates, as there should have been progress. Yuan asks if the third senior brother was like senior sister Zhao Yu, and Lu Zhou says that is impossible. Lu Zhou wonders why Duan Wuxing has not reported his progress, as his loyalty is high, and if he had defected, the system would have notified him. Yuan says she also does not think the third senior brother would betray the sect, as he is an honest man and would not do such a treacherous thing. Lu Zhou reflects that, unless someone's loyalty is 80% or higher, he will not fully trust them, remembering that even Zhao Yu was 60% defected. However, Yuan continues, saying that the fourth senior brother is there. Lu Zhou goes to see his disciple, reflecting that he almost fully understood the blue wood technique but still could not see Ningxi's true potential. The disciple's talent, though controversial, was something truly admirable. Ningxi sees Lu Zhou looking younger and wonders if it is really him. Ningxi greets Lu Zhou, who asks him to rise, but he notices that the master looks younger, and his imposing aura makes everyone tremble. Lu Zhou praises Ningxi's progress in the blue wood technique, explaining that it will give him extra vitality, and advises him to take advantage of this in his training. A system notification appears, indicating that Ningxi's loyalty has increased by 2%, and smiling, Ningxi thanks the master for his guidance and promises not to forget his words. Ningxi shares that while practicing the blue wood technique, he went to Anyang and obtained some important information. Lu Zhou asks him to share the details. Ningxi reveals that the CI family, of which his junior sister is a part, has been kidnapped again, and Yuan, alarmed, asks what happened. Ningxi offers to personally investigate the matter and promises to eliminate the culprit once and for all. Yuan kneels before Lu Zhou and asks to handle the matter herself this time. Lu Zhou thinks that while it is natural for Yuan to panic because it involves her family, Ningxi has more experience dealing with delicate situations. A messenger bird arrives with a new message, but Lu Zhou thinks that Ningxi, with his stronger cultivation base, is better suited to handle the issue. Lu Zhou calls Yuan to capture the letter from the bird's beak. She quickly grabs the letter and begins to read it, as the message is from the third senior brother. Ningxi reveals that Zhou Jifeng has joined the righteous sect and was appointed as an elder, but he couldn't investigate further due to the power of Zhang Yuanshan. She reports that Zhang Yuanshan has publicly insulted their master multiple times and has also declared opposition to Jinting Mountain. Lu Zhou reflects that with so many enemies, one more wouldn't make a difference. Yuan mentions that the third brother faced Dudafang of the righteous sect, defeating him but failing to eliminate him. Duan Wuxing explained that as soon as he recovers, he intends to invade the righteous sect at night. His goal is to assassinate Zhang Yuanshan to relieve the master's burden. Yuan comments that Dita Fong is a divine court realm expert, and that her senior brother must have been gravely injured. Mingxue laments that Duan Wuxing is risking his life in this manner. Lu Zhou reflects on Dita Fong, who is on the verge of reaching the nascent divinity tribulation realm, and recalls Duan Wuxing's hatred for him. Lu Zhou notices Duan Wuxing's boldness in planning to assassinate Zhang Yuanshan but knows he is at a disadvantage due to the power gap between the two. Yuana asks why the third brother would mention something so dangerous. Mingxue explains that Duan Wuxing is trying to demonstrate loyalty to the master after the recent desertions, boasting that his master once said he was a much simpler man than him. Mingxue receives strange looks from both Yuana and Lu Zhou. Lu Zhou realizes that Duan Wuxing still acts in accordance with Ji Tiandao's methods, forcing himself to risk his life, which fosters mistrust between master and disciple. Determined to change this situation, Lu Zhou orders Mingxue to repair the defensive formations of Jiting Mountain. The formations are strong enough to deter nascent tribulation realm experts, and since Duan Wuxing is occupied, Mingxue must take on this task. Lu Zhou promises to reward Mingxue with celestial-grade treasures upon completing the work. Mingxue is surprised by his master's unexpected promise. He then states that he will obey the master's orders, and a notification appears indicating his loyalty has increased by 5%. He says he is willing to remain on the mountain for another 5 or 10 years if he can obtain those treasures. Celestial-grade treasures are rare, and many cultivators go their entire lives without obtaining one. He recalls that Yu Zhihai, the eldest senior brother, possesses the Jasper Saber, with which Zhihai eliminated tens of thousands of cultivators and earned fame. The difference between having and not having a celestial treasure is immense, like that between a grandfather and a grandson, with the former able to teach the latter. Mingxue comments that he never expected the master to promise something so valuable at such a critical moment. He then asks about the situation of Yuana's family, who had been kidnapped. Lu Zhou responds that the matter is complex and that he will decide after speaking with Yuana. Mingxue agrees and informs that he will assist the third brother in his mission and send a report. He flies away as Lu Zhou bids him to go. Yuan asks, intrigued, why her master seems to place so much importance on Zhou Jifeng, someone who, in her eyes, lacks significant relevance. Lu Zhou explains that he spared Zhou Jifeng so he could realize the true nature of the Celestial Sword sect, becoming a strategic enemy in the future. Lu Zhou now prefers to use his mind rather than brute force, focusing on discipline through rewards and punishments. Lu Zhou emphasizes that gaining the disciples' loyalty is vital to preserving Jiting Mountain but recognizes that, while dangerous, they are essential. He reflects that the problem is more complex than it seems and reveals his concern for Mingxue, the fourth senior brother. Lu Zhou decides to handle the matter personally, as Mingxue, in the past, acted impulsively, eliminating bandits without seeking answers. Yuana then kneels and begs her master to help her family or send her to Anyang. Lu Zhou simply turns and says he will personally rescue the CI family. Yuan, surprised and emotional at his decision, asks if he will really handle it himself. Lu Zhou surprises everyone by deciding to leave the mountain for the CI family, and the system notifies that Yuana's loyalty has increased by 5%. Lu Zhou instructs Yuan to keep the plan a secret, sending a letter to the senior brothers to ensure discretion, and Yuan complies while he evaluates the next steps. He plans to command the disciples from a distance, avoiding direct exposure and using safe and effective methods. To do this, he decides to change his appearance, disguising himself so as not to be recognized as the old villain of Jiting Court Mountain. Lu Zhou summons his legendary mount, the Wizard, a white creature resembling a goat with horns. The appearance of the Wizard surprises Yuana with its majestic presence. The Wizard emerges from a spiritual portal, glowing intensely and exuding an intimidating and powerful aura. Yuana, enchanted, curiously asks if her master had recently changed his mount. Lu Zhou simply invites her to ride the Wizard, explaining that it will be faster to reach the city of Anyang. Yuana says she cannot ride her master's mount because it would be disrespectful. Lu Zhou reflects on the Wizard's speed, surpassing that of fast cultivators, but notes that despite its divine abilities enabling long journeys, the energy cost is high. Legendary mounts like the Wizard are considered precious, practical, and highly valued in the cultivation world. Yuan, excited, pets the Wizard while praising its beauty and elegance, unable to contain her enthusiasm. When they mount the Wizard, Lu Zhou orders Yuana to hold on. The Wizard then takes flight, with Yuana sitting in the front and Lu Zhou holding onto her. Yuana remains animated during the flight as Lu Zhou holds onto her. After 2 hours of flight, they finally arrive at Anyang. Lu Zhou, visibly tired from the journey, says they have reached their destination. Yuan, however, remains amazed by the mount, praising its magnificence and stating she has never seen anything so incredible. Lu Zhou, focused, reminds her of the need to stow the wizard to avoid drawing unwanted attention. Additionally, he warns Yuan about the importance of changing her clothes and disguising her aura to blend in with the local population. They enter the city, which is a rather empty area. They spot a cabin with someone inside, where a man hands gold coins to a woman in farewell. Yuan teases her master, saying he now looks like a simple farmer, eliciting an impassive look from Lu Zhou, who replies that it does not matter. The master corrects her, declaring that from that moment on, they would be grandfather and granddaughter to maintain their disguise. Yuan, amused, begins repeatedly calling him Grandpa, taking the opportunity to tease her master. Lu Zhou reflects that, although he was 28 years old in his past life, the embarrassing situation is unavoidable, and he thanks the system for his rejuvenated appearance, which facilitates travel. As they walk through the streets, Yuan runs excitedly, calling Lu Zhou Grandpa, loudly, eliciting discreet laughter from passers-by. Passing by a merchant, Yuan grabs a handful of hawthorns, provoking an irritated reaction from the vendor. The man demands payment, but Yuan arrogantly responds that he should consider himself blessed for her tasting his goods. Before the situation escalates, Lu Zhou intervenes. Lu Zhou orders Yuan to pay the merchant and resolve the situation, while she mutters reluctantly that she might kill him in the future. Lu Zhou decides to correct his disciple's behavior, accustomed to stealing and lacking social manners. He then asks Yuan who would produce hawthorns if all merchants were robbed in such a manner. The system notifies Lu Zhou that disciplining Yuan earned him 100 merit points. Yuan hands several gold coins to the merchant, telling him to take them because she will kill him soon. They continue walking, and Yuan notices a crowd and, curious, tries to approach. However, as she tries to enter, she is squeezed in the middle of the crowd, which is watching something. Impatient, she forces her way through, throwing several people aside and drawing attention. Yuan impresses the onlookers by creating a hole in the ground with her strength, and Lu Zhou observes, noting her impulsiveness outside Jinting Court Mountain. He realizes that the freedom of the city attracts his villainous disciples, making it clear why they always want to go on missions. Yuan hears a man commenting on the strength of her kick and asking if she is there to join his sect. Lu Zhou praises Yuan's strength, noting that her strike is at the 5th level of the body-tempering realm, and suggests she register with the Azure Dragon Association. Yuan, confused, asks when she said she wanted to join the association. The man, irritated, declares that she is brave to insult the Azure Dragon Association. Yuan kicks the table into the air and demands an explanation about the Azure Dragon Association, pressuring the man to speak quickly, reminding him that her grandfather is waiting for her. The man, holding his sword, questions who the wild girl is and accuses her of being there to cause trouble, as it is impossible for her not to know the Azure Dragon Association. Lu Zhou intervenes and tells Yuan to stop, as it was drawing unnecessary attention. The man analyzes Lu Zhou and questions if he was at the 7th or 8th grade of the body-tempering realm. Lu Zhou ignores the comment and states that the association could assist in the investigation. Yuan understands the order and calls the men over. The recruiter from the association says she didn't know who she was dealing with, asserting that the Azure Dragon Association was backed by a lower sect. Yuan becomes apprehensive and asks about this lower sect. The man notices and questions if she was scared. She thinks that the lower sect was led by her eldest senior brother. Lu Zhou then questions if the lower sect truly supported the Azure Dragon Association, and the man confirms Lu Zhou's question. The man taunts Lu Zhou, suggesting that he would make a good cook for the association, highlighting that he would have quality food, drink, and shelter. The man praises Yuan's potential and suggests that both she and Lu Zhou join the Azure Dragon Association, offering to speak to the leader on their behalf. Yuan notices Lu Zhou's silence and imagines he is angry. She remembers that her master had forbidden killing these people. However, he hadn't said they couldn't be beaten. With a smile, Yuan kicks the man in the jaw. She then kicks him again, sending him crashing into the wall. Afterward, she returns and starts landing dozens of punches to his face. This leaves the man kneeling, severely injured. With his face bruised, he simply lowers his head. She questions who gave him the right to call her grandfather old man. Lu Zhou wonders if she had no respect for the law, while the villagers comment that if she knew anything about laws, she wouldn't belittle Yuan. The men then draw their swords and advance, declaring that she dared to attack them. But Yuan responds that not only did she dare to attack them, but she also wouldn't mind killing them, and she kicks one of the men far away. The men acknowledge Yuan's strength and kneel, begging for their lives. Yuan questions why she should spare them while Lu Zhou praises her attitude. Yuan then explains that she was upset because they called her grandfather old man, and that's why she taught them a lesson. Lu Zhou approaches the men and asks where the headquarters of the Azure Dragon Association's branch is located. The men reveal that their base is 3 miles north of the Gu River in Anyang. Lu Zhou decides to speak with the leader of the Azure Dragon Association, while the men flee, intimidated by Yuan. Lu Zhou clarifies that his purpose in questioning the men was not to destroy the headquarters but to gather information about the CI family's abduction. Yuana apologizes for misunderstanding her master's actions, but her master continues, asking if she still remembers where her home is, even after so many years. Yuana replies that she remembers there were 2 stone lions at the front gate, and that her father loved practicing with sabers and spears. While her mother preferred embroidery, she also recalls that her mother favored her more. Lu Zhou reflects on Yuana being sent to Jinting Mountain, without knowing the reason, and wonders why any parent would do such a thing. Lu Zhou considers that, since Anyang isn't a very large city, and the CI family wouldn't be hard to locate, a few questions would suffice to find them. Yuana places the stone lions on the ground, smiling as she recalls the past, while Lu Zhou, with a serious look, instructs her to behave and focus on the mission. They then find a man sweeping leaves near the CI family residence. The man asks who the visitors are looking for. Yuana quickly approaches and asks where her father and mother are, but the man only asks who she is, as her parents aren't there. Yuana, irritated, strikes him in the stomach and throws him aside. Lu Zhou reflects that the situation requires caution. Yuana, impatient, insists that the man leave, as he had provoked her master. Lu Zhou then comments that the information given by Yuana's 4th senior brother was accurate. Yuana calls the man back and asks where her parents are. Lu Zhou notices that Yuana has grown significantly, looking different from when she was a child, and that's why the steward didn't recognize her. The master then asks the man's name. The man introduces himself as Wang Fugui and states that he is the steward of the CI family. He asks about CI and Wang Fugui explains that they were kidnapped. Lu Zhou then reveals that the girl is CI Yuana, the young master of the CI family. The man, surprised, kneels and says that his young lady has finally returned. Introducing himself as Wang Fugui, he addresses his young lady while shedding tears. Yuana questions the reason for his reaction, and Lu Zhou suggests they talk inside. Lu Zhou notices that the information is scarce, and that those involved seem well hidden. He knows that resolving this mystery will require more clues and strategy. The CI family was kidnapped twice in a row, with the servants fleeing with valuable goods, leaving Wang Fugui as the last to remain in the mansion. Lu Zhou asks why Wang Fugui did not alert the local authorities despite everything that happened. Fugui explains that, except for those who left for tasks, all members of the CI family were kidnapped, and he escaped because he was in the bathroom. A fly buzzes by, and Yuana asks why he didn't flee. Wang Fugui says that the CI family treated him well, and he wishes to live and die as a member of the CI family. Lu Zhou comments on his loyalty to the family, and notes that Yuana was lucky not to have killed him. She smashes the fly against the wall, impressing Wang Fugui. Yuana's master instructs him to keep his loyalty a secret. Lu Zhou will investigate the kidnapping, while Wang Fugui, unaware of Yuana and her master's past, sees him as a frail old man. Lu Zhou says they will leave now and calls Yuana to accompany him. The girl agrees, and Lu Zhou asks her to visit the Azure Dragon Association tomorrow, without revealing her identity. Lu Zhou receives 200 merit points for Duan Wuxing's task but notices that only Mingshi appears in the system. The only logical explanation is that Duan Wuxing is injured and therefore did not complete his duty. Meanwhile, at Jinting Court Mountain, Mingshi is staring at a letter from his junior sister. He says he cannot believe that the master has left the mountain and wonders what he must be thinking. Duan Wuxing comments that, after staying on the mountain for so long, he would like to go out, but he does not want to be recognized. Mingshi says it makes sense, noting that their master has been acting strangely in recent days. He admits he can no longer understand what the master is thinking. In the past, their master preferred absolute strength, not tricks, and Mingshi twists a cloth in his hands. Duan Wuxing agrees, saying that Mingshi will take care of the shield since his injury will take months to heal. Mingshi throws the cloth at his face, saying that both he and Xing had been beaten since childhood and had faced far more severe problems than this. Pulling the cloth from his face, Duan Wuxing says his junior brother is clever. Mingshi declares that, in 10 days, if Duan Wuxing does not improve, he will stop fixing the shield so that the master will discipline him. Duan Wuxing replies that he doesn't need 10 days. 7 days will be more than enough. He asks his junior brother to leave him alone as he needs to heal, and it is inappropriate for 2 single men to stay in the same room. Mingshi quickly leaves the room with a frustrated expression. Outside the house, he reflects, wondering what his master is thinking. He notices a carrier pigeon with a letter. He slaps the pigeon's face and snatches the letter to read it. Mingshi wonders how the master knew about the third brother's injury, and immediately remembers the divine sense that covers a vast area. He extends his aura but only senses birds in the branches, unable to detect any other person or creature, yet he knows his master is watching. Mingshi kneels, apologizes, and promises to work hard to fix the shield and take care of Jinting Court Mountain. A notification appears for Lu Zhou, stating that Ming Shirin was rewarded with 100 merit points and a 2% increase in loyalty. Lu Zhou reflects on the celestial scripture scroll, concluding that to foresee the future, he must listen to all the voices of the realms. Lu Zhou ponders how his ability to read the human scroll has improved over time. The goal of cultivating the celestial scripture was to strengthen his cultivation base, but he only understands its content gradually. It feels as though he has put the cart before the oxen, but since entering the sense condensation realm, he has absorbed much energy with the help of the avatar. However, even against a divine court expert, he is still as weak as an ant, and he wonders if the system is deliberately making things difficult for him. He then remembers the lottery, thinking it's an addictive game and that he should wait until he has more merit points. The next morning, at the Azure Dragon Association headquarters, Lu Zhifeng questions if the person who injured the officer was a young girl accompanied by an old man, and what led them to challenge the Azure Dragon Association. The men respond that they don't know, only mentioning that the girl's grandfather said something. Zhifeng asks what he said. The man responds that her grandfather would call Zhifeng to speak personally today. Zhifeng orders 20 men to go find the girl who injured Officer Jiang. The man agrees, while another says a girl wishes to see him. Zhifeng tells the guard to send her away. The other man explains that she said her patience was limited and that even though she obeyed her grandfather's orders, she had requested Zhifeng to follow hers. Suddenly, a wall explodes. Yuana appears, dragging Officer Jiang, and the association members realize she is in the Brahma Sea realm, leaving them powerless. Yuana complains that she's been patient enough but was still made to wait outside, questioning how they dared treat her that way. The men explain that it was the young girl who caused Officer Zhang's injuries. Zhifeng, calm, already anticipated the revelation and, noticing her strength, prepares to handle the situation strategically. Yuana directly asks if he is truly the leader of the Azure Dragon Association, leaving the men unsettled, doubting whether their leader would tolerate such a challenge. Zhifeng warns Yuana that no matter how strong she is, there is always someone stronger, and she shouldn't consider herself invincible. Yuana boldly questions Jingfeng's arrogance, demanding clarification about his claims and whether he really is the leader. The leader confirms with a simple yes, which, for him, carries significant weight. At that moment, Yuana declares she has a task for him. Zhifeng questions Yuana's audacity, trying to understand what could have driven her to challenge the Azure Dragon Association. Instead of showing concern, he decides to command his men to attack, perhaps believing the situation was under control. One of the men fires an arrow imbued with chi, clearly aimed to harm Yuana. However, as the arrow approaches her face, Yuana, with remarkable skill, effortlessly deflects it with a single motion. Zhifeng realizes that Yuana has opened all 8 meridians of the Brahma Sea realm, repelling the attacks with an inexplicable force. Stunned, Zhifeng understands that Yuana has surpassed the Brahma stage by unlocking the 8 meridians, making her nearly invincible below the Divine Court realm. Despite the Azure Dragon Association's power, he realizes she is no ordinary opponent. The fight turns into a one-sided battle, with Yuana holding her position without moving, while her opponent's attacks are absorbed by her energy. After attempting an unsuccessful strike, Zhifeng is thrown against the wall, and for a moment, the room grows silent. In a calmer tone, he asks her to have patience and refrain from reacting aggressively. Yuana, with a piercing gaze, questions what he expects her to wait for. Zhifeng apologizes, admitting he underestimated her, and offers to talk, hoping for a peaceful resolution. Yuana, resolute, repeats that she has a task for him. The cautious leader asks what she wants. Without hesitation, the young woman demands that he investigate the Lakeside gang, responsible for the CI family's kidnapping. Zhifeng, surprised by the mention of an unfamiliar gang, expresses his doubts about its existence, claiming he's never heard of them. Yuana firmly asserts that the gang is responsible for the kidnappings and gives him 3 days to find them. Now more contemplative, Zhifeng murmurs to himself, questioning whether the gang truly exists and if it's worth getting involved in such a risky matter. Yuana, noticing his hesitation, asks what he said, and the leader reluctantly confirms that he will locate the gang within the stipulated time. Satisfied with his response, Yuana begins walking toward the archer who had fired the arrow. With a challenging glare, she asks if he was the one who tried to attack her. When he denies it, she insinuates he is lying. Without giving him a chance to explain, she strikes him, causing him instant pain. With her power still evident, the young woman delivers a final warning to everyone. If things aren't done her way, she will destroy the Azure Dragon Association. Zhifeng, frustrated, questions the identity of this young expert, upset that he had no knowledge of her existence as she injured them and imposed her demands. He wonders if the Lakeside gang truly exists in Anyang, and what it means for the association. A system notification then appears for Lu Zhou, stating that his task to mobilize the Azure Dragon Association has been completed, rewarding him with 200 merit points. The CI family seemed unchanged, and Ji Tianao, upon meeting Yuan, wanted to make her his disciple, but was rejected, and she was sent to Jinting court. Lu Zhou questions Wang Fugui about the enemies the Ci family had made over the years. Wang Fugui says that the Ci family never had enemies, but Lu Zhou presses, asking if that was true even 5 years ago. Wang Fugui hesitates and asks if he is referring to the Murong family. Lu Zhou inquires further about the family, and Wang Fugui reveals that 5 years ago, the Murong and Ci families were enemies, and his master became wealthy through business dealings. After that, the Ci and Murong families became sworn enemies. Lu Zhou asks if the Murong family was behind the murders, and Wang Fugui confirms it but says that no one had proof, so the authorities ignored it. Lu Zhou questions whether the Murong family was behind the kidnapping, reflecting that the Ci family had sent Yuan to Ji Tianao for her protection at the time. Wang Fugui admits he doesn't know but suspects they might be involved. Lu Zhou considers that if the Murongs had strong cultivators, it could explain the kidnapping of the Ci family. Wang Fugui adds that he had no known connections with them, and if they were hiding someone, he wasn't aware. Yuan quickly flies in and lands on the ground. She smiles and promises to try, but adds she can't guarantee anything. Lu Zhou sighs, knowing she will always act her way, but he still warns her. A system notification appears, stating that he disciplined little Yuan and was rewarded with 100 merit points. He then asks her how things are progressing. Yuan says they were very obedient and promised to locate the lakeside gang for them. Lu Zhou asks if she hit them. Yuan denies it but says the leader was quite cooperative, promising the young lady they would find the lakeside gang within 3 days. Lu Zhou sighs and agrees, reflecting that he must be patient and teach her slowly since change doesn't happen all at once. After some time, Wang Fugui asks if the young lady went to the Azure Dragon Association alone, expressing concern for her safety. Lu Zhou responds that if he were in Fugui's place, he would be more worried about the safety of the gang members. Wang Fugui merely sighs. Lu Zhou comments that the Azure Dragon Association is causing a stir in Anyang as they search for the lakeside gang. He understands Fugui's concern because the Azure Dragon Association is supported by a subordinate sect led by Yu Zhihai, an expert ranked second on the blacklist. 5 notifications appear, stating that a villain has been killed and rewarding Lu Zhou with 10 merit points each. He reflects that little Yuan has a short temper and still can't control herself. Lu Zhou thinks about the merit points, recalling that Yuan killed 50 bandits and dealt with everything swiftly. The authorities turn a blind eye because the bandits are supported by the Nether sect, but they are a scourge in Anyang. They deserve to die, but they weren't worth pitying. Lu Zhou then calls Fugui and instructs him to investigate whether there has been any unusual activity in the Murong family recently. Wang Fugui says he will leave immediately and starts walking, but Lu Zhou tells him to wait, so Fugui stops. He hands Fugui a token, stating that no one will dare stop him if he shows it. Wang Fugui accepts the item while Lu Zhou, watering plants, reflects that the items obtained from the system have disappeared, but the stolen ones, like the royal token, remain. In the afternoon, Yuan arrives again, landing on the roof. The girl then calls out to her master. Lu Zhou orders her to kneel, and Yuan asks for forgiveness for killing the bandits. Lu Zhou says he is not blaming her for that, but he reminds her that he had already told her this was her home, and she should use the front door, questioning if he had been talking to a wall. Yuan apologizes, saying she forgot because she was in a hurry. Lu Zhou reprimands her and orders her to put her face to the ground, leaving her confused. Lu Zhou asserts that although her nature is good, she cannot disregard the rules, and with Yuan's parents absent, it is his responsibility to discipline her. He then prepares and slaps the kneeling Yuan. However, she had activated a protective layer, and says it didn't hurt at all. Lu Zhou thinks she is trying to play with him and orders her to remove the protective layer. Yuan pleads for mercy from her master, and promises not to do it again, but Lu Zhou insists that she must withdraw. The protective energy then disappears, and Lu Zhou thinks that, without it, she is just an ordinary girl. He decides to punish her so she can understand that acting without rules can bring danger and attract unwanted attention. He gives Yuan several slaps, and she constantly complains about the pain. Lu Zhou thinks to himself that it is supposed to hurt. In his memory, Yuan was the only disciple Ji Tianao never punished, while the others always faced severe discipline followed by healing. Since childhood, Yuan hadn't had her parents nearby, and her master was her only figure of support. Now, after the punishment, nearly crying, she hears Lu Zhou tell her to get up. The girl complains that it hurt a lot. Lu Zhou gives Yuan a candy, telling her to remember the new lessons and forget the old ones. Yuan simply agrees and eats the candy. The system informs him that he was rewarded with 300 points for disciplining the 9th disciple, and Lu Zhou notices her loyalty remains above 80. The little Yuan was easy to teach, but the other 8 were the real problem. Yuan reveals that the gang was fake, made up of temporary cultivators, and she didn't even know this, as it was an accident by the lake. Yuana explains that reinforcements were sent to kill her, but she fought back and killed them all. Lu Zhou thinks that only a divine court realm expert could face her. Lu Zhou reflects that by now, the steward should have returned but still hasn't appeared. He then tells Yuana to follow him because Wang Fugui hasn't returned. As they turn to leave, Yuana tells her master there's something written on his back, and he simply tells her to erase it. At the derived Moon Palace, Zhao Yu paced back and forth, clearly displaying her restlessness. Tiexing observed her, trying to stay calm, and said not to worry because retreating wasn't an option. They needed to move forward despite the risks. Zhao Yu paused and said the situation would be less worrisome if they had acted a month ago, when his personality was more explosive and selfish. But recently, something had changed in his behavior, which made her uncomfortable, as he no longer seemed like the same man. Tiexing asked what kind of changes those were and what might have caused this transformation. Zhao Yu explained that it was difficult to describe precisely, but she just had a feeling he had become gentler and less prone to outbursts of anger. Tiexing replied that this was an irrational fear because, after so many years of torture and finally escaping him, Zhao Yu shouldn't feel afraid of facing him. Zhao Yu admitted she might be exaggerating but quickly changed the subject, questioning whether he would fall into the trap they had planned. Tiexing thought it would be difficult to lure the old man, but the naive younger sister would be easier to capture. Once the old man left Jinting Mountain, he would lose the protection and support of his brothers, making him vulnerable. Zhao Yu asked how to neutralize the old man, and Tiexing explained that he had harmed many sects and cultivators over the years. Tiexing planned to spread news of Lu Zhou's actions to incite anger, particularly from the Celestial Sword sect, but Zhao Yu doubted this, thinking there would be more fear than anger. She recalled the cultivators fleeing in terror from Ji Tiandao, a scene she would never forget, as he seemed to be the only one capable of inspiring such fear. Tiexing said she spread rumors that Ji Tiandao possessed a secret drug, believing it would prompt the 10 great sects and their experts to attack him without hesitation. Before they could discuss further, a maid rushed in with a letter, informing them that the Azure Dragon Association had been destroyed. Additionally, rumors about the presence of an Imperial Army key in Anyang were circulating. Tiexing inquired about the destruction of the association. The maid said the attackers seemed to have opened the 8 meridians of the Brahma Sea, and Zhao Yu suspected Yuana. She was from the Divine Court, and her impulsiveness made it plausible that she destroyed the association, but hiding her cultivation base would be difficult. Zhao Yu then considered the possibility that her master had left Jiting Mountain with her, which would explain the rumors. Tiexing dismissed this hypothesis as unlikely but decided to act cautiously. She instructed the maid to deliver portraits to the CI family and infiltrate their household, returning with information if anything suspicious arose. Zhao Yu said the key, with the symbol of a dragon, was used to mobilize the Imperial Army, which had always belonged to the Emperor. Tiexing suggested that either the symbol was fake or the Emperor was in disguise, but she deemed it unlikely due to the ongoing war, and Zhao Yu agreed, trying to calm herself. Tiexing reaffirmed that everything was under his control despite the adversities. In Anyang, Lu Zhou and Yuana strolled through the city, eating and observing the movement around them. Lu Zhou reprimanded Yuana for her carefree attitude, warning her to follow his instructions carefully to avoid problems. Yuana accepted her master's words, demonstrating respect and understanding. Lu Zhou suggested that the kidnappers might be Yuana's brothers, but she denied it, stating that they had always treated her well and she didn't believe they would hurt her. Soon, they arrived at the Murong family's property. Lu Zhou entered without ceremony, and Yuana offered to knock on the door, but he ordered her to kick it open, taking a direct approach. On the other side, the Murong family's children were busy training under the supervision of an instructor. Suddenly, the door flew inward, striking the instructor and interrupting the training. Lu Zhou and Yuana entered without hesitation through the wide-open door, ready to face whatever awaited them. The Murong family's students stopped their training at the sound of something hitting their gate, and looked on with fury. They quickly advanced, ready to attack whoever dared to invade their territory. However, with a simple wave of his hand, Lu Zhou made them stop in their tracks. Yuana, observing the situation, asked if she should step back. But Lu Zhou, with a calm smile, said it was time to crush them. The girl, her eyes gleaming, replied that it would be her pleasure. With surprising strength, Yuana delivered a powerful punch, sending the Murong family's experts flying. They tried to retaliate, but she didn't give them a chance, advancing ferociously and defeating them one by one. Lu Zhou watched, likening her to a wolf let loose among a flock of sheep. Yuana handled the enemies with ease, showcasing her power. After the battle, Yuana, with a satisfied smile, commented that those opponents were nothing. Lu Zhou questioned what Yuana gained from facing such weak enemies. She simply enjoyed herself, warming up for bigger challenges. Murong Hai, the Murong family's lead expert, arrived, looking suspiciously at the intruders and asking who they were. Without wasting time, Lu Zhou asked if Wang Fugui was with them, showing he had information about the situation. Muronghai, with a serious expression, explained that Wang Fugui had falsified the royal army's symbol, leading to his arrest and transfer to the proper authorities. Lu Zhou then instructed Yuana to make Muronghai show some respect. The young girl, with her imposing demeanor, said she would do so immediately. Muronghai, surprised by Yuana's boldness, asked who she was, finding it strange that such a young girl would challenge someone of his lineage. Muronghai was interrupted by Yuana's energy, as she authoritatively demanded to know who lacked manners and ordered everyone to kneel. Muronghai, shocked, realized that Yuana was an expert in the 8 meridians of the Brahma Sea, far beyond his capabilities. Lu Zhou observed calmly, thinking that the Murong family's cultivators were mere mortals compared to Yuana's power. Yuana, holding Muronghai, mocked his strength, increasing his discomfort. After a brief exchange of words and some punches, Muronghai finally begged for Wang Fugui's release, swearing he was untouched until then. However, when the man was released, he was completely beaten, his expression showing how much he had suffered at Yuana's hands. Yuana, serious, declared that those who destroyed others' property must pay. She asked Lu Zhou for permission to continue, and he agreed. With a determined expression, Yuana turned to Muronghai and demanded to know who had attacked Wang Fugui. Muronghai denied any involvement. Impatient, Yuana demanded he deliver a message and continued beating him. Muronghai, trying to recover, questioned the violence, stating there was no feud between the families. With a calm gaze, Lu Zhou asked Muronghai about the CI family's kidnapping, implying that he might have something to do with it. Yuana continued attacking Muronghai until he was forced to reveal the truth. Reluctantly, Muronghai admitted that the cultivators responsible were from the Azure Dragon Association, known for their strength and influence. With a cautious look, Muronghai suggested Lu Zhou avoid interfering with these people. Lu Zhou asked if he knew them. Muronghai, thoughtful, asked more about the connection to Jintingcourt Mountain. Lu Zhou denied it, ordering Muronghai to explain about them. Muronghai tried to deflect, mentioning that the infamous patriarch of Jintingcourt Mountain had 9 disciples, all known for their dark deeds. He also warned that these cultivators were infamous for killing mercilessly and committing all kinds of evil acts. Muronghai, seeing Lu Zhou as someone more peaceful, suggested he should not get involved with them. However, Yuana burst into laughter upon hearing this. Lu Zhou thinks Yuana's attitude is overly cheeky and decides he will later teach her a lesson to correct her behavior. He then asks Muronghai to ignore her and continue the conversation. Muronghai says the Lake Gang doesn't exist and that 2 days before the abduction, they were in Anyang with 30 people. Lu Zhou questions how Muronghai knows this, reflecting that if they were pretending to be a gang, they wouldn't want to be publicly recognized. Muronghai remains silent for a moment, but pressed by Lu Zhou, he finally admits that some of the people involved were from his own family. Yuana scorns Muronghai, and Lu Zhou, with irony, agrees, but Muronghai pleads for mercy and promises not to challenge the CI family again. Lu Zhou calmly asks if Muronghai could track the abducted hostages. Muronghai hesitates, unsure of how to respond. Lu Zhou once again asks if he is capable. Finally, Muronghai admits that he can track the hostages, and Lu Zhou says they should return as soon as possible. Yuana offers to help with this. Lu Zhou orders Muronghai and the symbol to be brought along, and Yuana smiles, saying she found the symbol, with Wang Fugui agreeing. Lu Zhou instructs Yuana to store the symbol discreetly, but Yuana observes it curiously, while Wang Fugui urges Muronghai to walk faster. Lu Zhou explains that the symbol is unique due to its dragon engraving, distinguishing it from fakes. He instructs Yuana to keep it safe to avoid unwanted attention. Muronghai, stunned, collapses to the ground, creating a puddle of urine as he questions whether the symbol is genuine. Wang Fugui, irritated, affirms it obviously is. Yuana, with a disdainful smile, tells Muronghai to get up since he's sitting in his own mess. Lu Zhou orders Yuana to inform the senior brothers of potential threats and, together with Muronghai, rescue her family the next day. At home, Lu Zhou tries the lottery, obtaining 3 reversal cards, and questions the system's pricing logic. He tries again, winning 5 critical block cards but only receiving luck points in other attempts, deciding to hold back. He resolves to stop there, reasoning that if he couldn't get at least 1 reversal card in 10 attempts, he'd suffer a significant loss. Lu Zhou uses the 3 reversal cards and gains 1,000 days of life, noting that each gave him 333 days, slightly more than before. As a result, his physical functions improved significantly, and his body became much stronger, though his cultivation base was still weak. His vision improved greatly, and for a brief moment, he noticed light streaming through the window like ocean waves before everything returned to normal. Lu Zhou wonders if this was a manifestation of the heavenly writing's power, and begins reflecting on how he could use it. The system explained that the heavenly writing was unique, and Lu Zhou would need to find his own path. He asked to open the interface. The next day, Yuana comments that Lu Zhou seemed younger, but Lu Zhou, with a smile, says it was kind of her to say so and asks Muronghai to proceed. Muronghai, now more serious, agrees and clasps his hands. He then starts making various hand symbols. Muronghai reveals that the hostages are 16 kilometers to the north. Wang Fugui applauds, and Muronghai comments that the cultivators doubted the rescue. Lu Zhou, thoughtful, questions Muronghai about the 16 kilometers and whether it would be better to wait a bit longer, as he didn't want to send Yuana alone. Yuana, curious, asks what Lu Zhou is thinking. Muronghai insists they should leave immediately, and Wang Fugui stays behind at home. The three of them head to the destination. When they arrive at a forest, they find a cyan portal. Muronghai says it's likely the meeting point. He reveals they are at Blue Sun Mountain, and his technique guided them there, believing the gang's cultivators are hiding in the mountain. Lu Zhou agrees with Muronghai's assessment, and says now is the time for Yuana to rescue her family. Yuana, determined, says she understands. With a swift movement, she stomps on the ground, releasing her energy as she begins running toward the mountain. Muronghai, impressed, comments that she must be a genius to have opened the 8 meridians of the Brahma Sea at such a young age. But soon, a group of people appears. They announce that they have been waiting a long time for them. Lu Zhou thought they had finally found the cultivators. Muronghai revealed that the cultivators had fallen into a trap in the Brahma Sea and were now doomed. Muronghai marveled at Lu Zhou's calmness, feeling insignificant compared to such powerful cultivators. Aware of the vast difference in strength, Muronghai suggested fleeing, fearing the might of the Brahma Sea specialists. Muronghai glanced at Yuana, thinking that with her strength in the 8 meridians of the Brahma Sea, she could hold them off, offering a chance to escape. He found Lu Zhou's composure peculiar, noting his focus on the field while the threat grew. Yuana, however, seemed unfazed and began silently counting the opponents she would face, leaving Muronghai intrigued. Soon, one of the cultivators approached and said he didn't like killing nameless people, so they should introduce themselves. Without losing focus, Yuana responded that there were 12 Brahma Sea cultivators ahead and began preparing to fight. A scarred cultivator retorted, saying that the veteran had instructed them to kill anyone attempting to rescue the hostages. Another, with blue hair, remarked that they were being paid to resolve problems and noted that, though rare, it was impressive to achieve such high cultivation at such a young age. He lamented that Yuana had become involved with the CI family. Immediately, all the cultivators charged at Yuana, but Lu Zhou calmly asked who had paid them to do this. The blue-haired cultivator, surprised, questioned who Lu Zhou was and the cultivation levels of both him and Muronghai. Lu Zhou replied that in their world, rules were defined by those with the most strength. He then ordered Yuana to attack. With a swift movement, Yuana began unleashing her energy, and cherry blossoms appeared around her, forming a symbol on the ground. Muronghai, amazed, watched Yuana's display of power. The blue-haired cultivator, recognizing the aura, immediately ordered them to kill Yuana. But with an agile move, she used the 7-star step walking on clouds technique. This attack was enough to defeat all the cultivators in a single strike, sending them crashing down, defeated. One by one, she killed them. Then, she struck the blue-haired cultivator, sending him crashing down as well. Multiple system notifications appeared for Lu Zhou, stating that the bandits had been killed and that he had earned 10 merit points each. Muronghai was astonished. The blue-haired cultivator was stunned by Yuana's speed and strength. Smiling, Yuana asked the cultivator if he needed a helping hand. The man attempted to flee, but before he could, he was struck on the head, losing all memory. However, he soon recalled a lucrative job involving kidnapping the CI family and killing anyone attempting to rescue them. Yuana was thrilled with her success, and Lu Zhou praised her work, saying she had done an excellent job. Lu Zhou reflected on Yuana sparing one of them while killing the rest. A surprising move. He asked the man who had ordered the attack. The man replied that he didn't know. He revealed that the CI family was being held at Blue Fire Mountain, and that their leader had been taken by whoever had hired them, though he didn't know who it was. Losing patience, the Jinting court patriarch ordered Yuana to kill him, but the cultivator pleaded for his life, saying he would tell everything he knew. Yuana asked why he hadn't spoken earlier, and the cultivator explained that the CI family leader had been taken by the person who hired them. Yuana praised Lu Zhou, but he reflected on finding the group who had taken the patriarch without expending his experience cards, affirming that he wasn't responsible. Lu Zhou believed the others would also talk, given the trap left a message. Yuana questioned him, calling him Grandpa. He pondered why he spared the man, concluding that his only value lay in the merit points. In their world, mercy was a luxury no one could afford. Meanwhile, at the derived Moon Palace, several maids approached a gazebo where Zhao Yu and Tiexing were. The maids reported that a house and a child had approached the CI family residence. Tiexing asked if they had identified them. The maids responded that they resembled the portraits but couldn't confirm their identities. Tiexing paused to think and remembered that, as far as he knew, his third brother had been injured, and the justice sect had sent specialists to Jinting Court Mountain. Luo Xingkong sought revenge for his son's death, knowing that the fourth brother could not stop a nascent divinity tribulation expert. This seemed to be the perfect time to make Ji Tiandao use his cards, and Zhao Yu questioned whether they were merely imitators. Tiexing smiled and said the old man would fall straight into their trap. The letter revealed that the cultivators from the Lake Gang and Blue Sun Mountain were dead, and the CI family had escaped, except for the leader. Tiexing, thoughtful, commented that the girl capable of killing the lake cultivators was likely the youngest junior sister. He ordered a letter sent to the ruthless king, confirming the plan was proceeding and advising preparation. The maids agreed without hesitation. Zhao Yu believed the eighth brother was stronger than Yuana but recognized that she would soon surpass him. She mocked, saying the eighth brother thought himself too strong to be the ruthless king. Zhao Yu reflected on how Ji Tiandao's deeds became legendary, recalling his fame and influence in the cultivation world. Tiexing remarked that the problem was that the old man was a monster. Zhao Yu thought the disciples of Ji Tiandao knew what he truly was. Back where Lu Zhou was, he sneezed while observing the CI family members kneeling before him. They thanked him profusely for saving their lives, demonstrating deep gratitude. Lu Zhou noticed he earned merit points, but only once per person. Meanwhile, little Yuana reunited with her mother, visibly overjoyed. Lu Zhou ordered the survivors to be taken to a safe place, and Yuana agreed. He reflected on the situation, realizing that Yuana's father was still in the hands of an unknown and extremely powerful cultivator. On their way through the forest, Muronghai started a conversation with Lu Zhou. Murong believed Yuana would reach the Divine Court realm in less than 3 years. Yuana, however, retorted sarcastically, saying he was only praising her because he had wet himself in fear during the previous confrontation. Murong tried to change the subject, but Yuana threatened that, if he were useless, she would have already felt it on her shoe. Muronghai, frustrated, thought that not even compliments were well received by Yuana. He decided it was best to remain silent to avoid unnecessary trouble. Observing the situation, Murong concluded that Lu Zhou was far easier to talk to and infinitely kinder. Murong asked Lu Zhou about sending the CI family home, fearing further attacks. Yuana reassured Murong, explaining that no one would dare attempt that. She stated she had given the imperial symbol to her grandfather, ensuring their safety. Lu Zhou also reinforced that Murong need not worry, as the cultivators didn't target the CI family directly. Murong admitted that Lu Zhou's reasoning made sense, suggesting that without a ransom demand, there was another motive behind the kidnappers' actions. During their walk, Yuana noticed something strange in the sky. She observed closely and spotted a messenger pigeon, which immediately piqued her curiosity. Yuana leapt and skillfully captured the pigeon, examining it closely. She informed them the message came from the fourth senior brother, handing it to Lu Zhou. Yuana asked about the letter, but Lu Zhou said it was trivial matters and instructed her to send a message to the fourth disciple, asking him to wait. Murong, surprised, reflected that Lu Zhou and Yuana must belong to a powerful sect. He also mentioned the missing imperial seal of the CI leader, suggesting they return. Lu Zhou, however, asked what Murong knew about the imperial symbol. Murong explained that the emperor's symbol mobilized the army and the 8 generals, recognizable by its carved dragon. Lu Zhou agreed with Murong but suspected the symbol had been stolen from the palace, given Ji Tiandao's appearance. Lu Zhou believed the imperial family wouldn't retain the symbol after its theft but acknowledged its symbolic and material value. Lu Zhou questioned Murong about keeping Wang Fugui captive despite knowing about the symbol, and Murong admitted he hadn't noticed the carved dragon earlier. At that moment, Yuana spotted something in the distance and stated they were approaching the indicated location. As they drew closer, they saw a vast sea, its presence carrying a mystical atmosphere. Lu Zhou, with his imposing stance, ordered anyone present to reveal themselves. Suddenly, laughter echoed across the area, accompanied by an extremely powerful aura. Muronghai felt a chill down his spine, recognizing the aura as that of a divine court expert. Before he could react, a man appeared, holding the CI family leader in his arms, laughing disdainfully. Muronghai panicked, attempted to flee, believing all was lost and that Lu Zhou was a villain from the Jinting Mountain Court, deciding to act on his own. The man, however, laughed again, asserting it was already too late to flee. He created an energy barrier around Muronghai, trapping him completely. Muronghai, desperate, pleaded for Lu Zhou's help. Lu Zhou deduced from the man's aura that he was a divine court specialist, beyond the 8 meridians of the Brahma Sea. Even so, Lu Zhou decided it wasn't worth using a high-level card to confront him. The man observed the group, commenting on each one's strength. Muronghai was at the Mystic Enlightenment realm, Lu Zhou at the 8th temporal stage, and Yuana in the 8 meridians, forming an interesting challenge. Yuana, excited, taunted the man, saying he probably wouldn't last more than a minute against her. The man laughed at the provocation, but Lu Zhou warned Yuana to wait her turn, noting that the opponent was just a divine court cultivator. Murong-hai realized that Lu Zhou, acting arrogantly, could only be confident due to Yuana's strength, who had mastered the 8 meridians of the Brahma Sea. The man, curious, asked if Lu Zhou knew who he was dealing with. Lu Zhou, in turn, asked if he used the 3 yin styles of the Taoist societies. The man was impressed, realizing that Lu Zhou had identified his sect with just a glance. This made him question who Lu Zhou really was. Lu Zhou described the man's method, highlighting monthly pain and chills due to flaws in his cultivation. He concluded by stating that, in the man's current state, he had no more than 3 months to live. The man admired Lu Zhou's wisdom, reflecting on the secrets and flaws in cultivation methods that many tried to hide. After 2 decades using the 3 yin style, he had become a divine court specialist, but the reward came with great costs. The price of his strength was constant pain and chills throughout his body, and he wondered how the old man before him knew this so precisely. Curious and suspicious, he asked who Lu Zhou really was. Lu Zhou stated that he had betrayed the Taoists by focusing on yin while neglecting yang, which had nearly killed him. Confused, the man asked about the 6 yang technique, something he had never heard of. Lu Zhou merely questioned how he had never heard of such a technique. Meanwhile, the man began levitating, laughing. He claimed Lu Zhou had almost fooled him with his nonsense. Suddenly, he charged with an energy attack directed at Lu Zhou. However, before the attack reached him, Yuana intercepted it with ease. Annoyed, she demanded to know who had given him the freedom to attack her grandfather. With her energy, Yuana repelled the man, throwing him back with force. The man, surprised, commented that he thought she was only at the 8 meridians of the Brahma Sea. Murong-hai, observing, thought it was impossible and believed Yuana must have been pretending to be weak to attract stronger enemies. After all, this was clearly the aura of someone in the divine court. Yuana, excited, asked if she could beat the man up. Lu Zhou, with a faint smile, said she didn't even need to ask for permission. Confident, Yuana raised a finger and said it had been a long time since she faced someone so strong, warning the man that she wanted to enjoy the fight. Murong-hai, in shock, thought he must be dreaming as he watched such a young girl provoke a monster. Without hesitation, Yuana charged with impressive speed, delivering a direct kick to the man's head. With the crushing force of her energy, she sent him flying. The impact destroyed the ground around them. She immediately charged again toward the man. Their exchange of blows easily destroyed the surroundings. Murong-hai, desperate, mentally cried for help, while Lu Zhou calmly observed, commenting that Yuana still needed to control her temper. Murong-hai, astonished, wondered where this demon girl had come from as Yuana delivered another devastating blow, sending the man even farther away. At that moment, Lu Zhou quickly checked on the CI family master, noting he was only unconscious, without severe injuries. Murong-hai wondered why Lu Zhou pretended to be weak when he had such a powerful granddaughter. Lu Zhou, cautious, maintained his guard in a treacherous world, but Murong-hai, convinced, understood Lu Zhou's confidence in rescuing the CI family. Lu Zhou thought that Yuana just wanted to have fun, testing her skills after so much time on the mountain. She seemed to be thoroughly enjoying the challenge. Still intrigued, Murong-hai asked Lu Zhou another question. He wanted to know if Lu Zhou was also hiding his true strength. To him, it was hard to believe that Yuana had reached that level solely through the encouragement of an elderly grandfather. Murong flatters Lu Zhou, calling him powerful, but he responds with a laugh, downplaying his abilities. Murong-hai, surprised by this humility, thinks it's unusual for someone with such an arrogant granddaughter. He seizes the moment to ask another question and comments that Yuana is extremely talented but seems to struggle with dealing with people. Lu Zhou agrees, admitting that he's been thinking about how to teach her to better interact with others. Murong praises Lu Zhou's dedication, saying Yuana is lucky to have such a committed mentor. Yuana returns excitedly, while Lu Zhou reflects on her temperament, believing that, with time, she could improve. Yuana then looks at the fallen man and declares she wants to start round 2. She demands he stand up and redo his last move since she enjoyed it. The man, exhausted and hopeless, raises his hands in surrender, saying he doesn't want to fight anymore and begging to be left alone. Lu Zhou, in a calm tone, states that the fight is indeed over. However, Yuana doesn't miss the chance to belittle her opponent, mocking his surrender. Murong-hai sighs in relief and comments that the journey is over since everyone from the CI family has been rescued. However, Lu Zhou doesn't seem to share this sentiment. He approaches the man and says that things are just beginning. Revealing his name, Lu Zhou directly questions Pan Zhong, leaving him astonished. Pan Zhong, trembling, asks how Lu Zhou knows who he is. Lu Zhou ignores the question and gets straight to the point, stating that Pan Zhong has only 2 options: live for another 3 months or die immediately. Pan Zhong, still nervous, steps back and comments that, although Yuana is powerful, she doesn't have enough strength to kill him. Lu Zhou patiently explains that the true power of the 3 yin technique only emerges when balanced by the 6 yang technique. He asserts that without the missing part, Pan Zhong could never reach the full potential of his cultivation. Pan Zhong, confused, asks why he's never heard of the 6-yang technique. Yuan, always ready to defend her grandfather, remarks that he knows thousands of cultivation techniques. Pan Zhong, incredulous, repeats Yuan's words but has no time to react. A flying carriage appears, carrying powerful cultivators, and a voice greets Yuan while everyone awaits the next steps. Lu Zhou observes the approaching carriage and thinks that it is exactly what he anticipated. Yuan, recognizing the carriage, comments that it belongs to her eldest sister. Lu Zhou reassures her, saying there's no need to be afraid. She reflects that, indeed, there's no reason to fear since her master is present. Muronghai, on the other hand, remains speechless, trying to process the scene before him. He wonders if this is all a dream or an illusion. He notes that, upon reaching the Brahma Sea realm, cultivators can fly, but what surprises him is the sheer number of people doing so, as if it's common. He wonders if the Brahma Sea is on sale and no one told him. Moreover, he notices that everyone there has already opened the 8 meridians, as they are divine court experts, something rare and powerful. The presence of a flying carriage elevates the scene even further. A flying carriage is a symbol of status, reserved for great figures, and legendary mounts like those are even rarer than the carriages themselves. Muronghai recalls that during the siege on Jinting Mountain, only 10 flying carriages were present, and he wonders who owns the crimson one. From inside the carriage, a female voice emerges, addressing Yuan as her younger sister. Tiexing, the owner of the carriage, compliments Yuan's appearance, saying she looks more beautiful than ever. Pan Zhong, hearing this, mentally questions the relationship between the two. He thinks that although Yuan is formidable, the owner of the crimson carriage holds undeniable significance. Yuan, visibly annoyed, shouts at Tiexing, declaring that she is not her younger sister. Tiexing merely laughs, commenting that Yuan is still as innocent and adorable as ever. A cultivator questions the master of the Yi Palace about Ji Tiandao, mentioning that they expected to find him but only see an apprentice. Lu Zhou hears this and reflects on being called his own apprentice. He realizes that with his new appearance, he looks 10 years younger, more handsome, and with his essence intact, but wonders if he truly appears so different. Tiexing, impatient, calls on them to take a closer look at who is in front of them. The cultivators hesitate, confused by her provocation. Lu Zhou receives a notification about Yi Tiexing, stating she is in the tribulation realm and has 45% hostility. Tiexing then declares that her master has fallen into her trap. Lu Zhou recognized Yi Tiexing as his 6th disciple, master of the derived Moon Palace, a place known for its female cultivators and disdain for unfaithful men. Tiexing arrived with external cultivators, a clever strategy, and Lu Zhou compared her to the moon, rising from the mud yet remaining unsullied. Lu Zhou knew that with the experience card, he would have 30 minutes in his maximum form to face his disciples. Tiexing addressed him as Master, again, drawing everyone's attention. The cultivators questioned if he was Ji Tiandao, the demon who enslaved 80,000 in Rongbei. They referred to him as the malicious patriarch and spoke of Tiexing as his disciple. Muronghai, terrified, realized that Lu Zhou was the malicious patriarch and felt as if he had dug his own grave. Ignoring the murmurs, Lu Zhou told Tiexing that since she addressed him as master, he would give her another chance, suggesting she return to Jinting Mountain as his disciple. Tiexing, with a cold tone, responded that she called him master out of respect but said that returning would depend on the opinions of the cultivators present. The cultivators, increasingly hostile, called Lu Zhou an old demon, claiming he was lucky in the last battle, but his luck would end there. They accused him of relying on a drug for his previous victory, and declared this would be his end, ordering his surrender. Lu Zhou, calmly, asked how they knew he would be there. At that moment, a maid handed Ji Tiandao's wanted poster to Tiexing. Tiexing held the poster and sarcastically commented on the difficulty of believing the legendary malicious patriarch would need to disguise himself. She asked if he would believe her if she said discovering him was just a guess. With a swift motion, she tore the poster in half, ending the moment of provocation. Lu Zhou concluded that using a high-level card for a disciple wasn't worth it, but the confrontation seemed inevitable. He reminded Tiexing of the teachings and the Ring of Love, but noted she had betrayed the sect and its principles. Tiexing let out an ironic laugh before responding. She questioned if he still thought he could treat her as he once did when he was the feared Ji Tiandao. She claimed he was no longer capable of causing chaos, and had chosen that graveyard as the site of his final defeat. The cultivators accompanying her commented that this was quite considerate of her. Yuan, enraged, shouted, asking how Tiexing dared speak to her master that way, declaring that her punishment would be immense for such insolence. Remaining calm, Lu Zhou asked who had revealed his location, speculating whether it had been the 7th, the 5th, or the useless 8th disciple. Tiexing revealed that everything, from the kidnapping to the confrontation, was her plan to lure Lu Zhou and Yuan. She confirmed that she had orchestrated it, and added that if Lu Zhou hadn't appeared, she would have handled it herself. Tiexing chastised him for his questions and ordered Pan Zhong to focus only on his instructions, assuring him the payment would be fulfilled. Lu Zhou intervened, stating that he had already killed many, and adding more names to the list wouldn't make a difference. The cultivators prepared for battle. Tiexing mentioned a secret drug that could boost energy but with severe side effects. Lu Zhou recalled the secret drug, banned by orthodox sects due to its brutal effects. He was surprised to see Tiexing use the drug as an accusation, and the cultivators murmured, believing it to be true in his case. Tiexing, with a dark tone, announced that she had activated a magic array. This array drained energy continuously, making any attempt to reuse the drug futile. With a cold gaze, Tiexing declared that she would no longer call him master. She announced that after his death, she would ensure a decent burial and take over Jinting Mountain Court. She also added that the Justice Sect specialists had likely already arrived at the court. With the third brother injured, the fourth must have already surrendered. Lu Zhou realized that Tiexing had used others as cannon fodder, avoiding direct attacks. Concerned, Yuan asked what they should do about the activated array, and Lu Zhou confidently assured her there was nothing to fear. Tiexing reflected on how her master's behavior had changed, showing neither the anger nor fury of the past. At that moment, Wang Fugui appeared on the battlefield, searching for his master. Lu Zhou explained that Yuana's mother was worried about her safety and asked what was happening. Yuan, confused, questioned Wang Fugui. To everyone's surprise, Wang Fugui knelt before Lu Zhou, pleading with him to save his master. While still kneeling, he drew a dagger and charged forward. Then he tried to stab Lu Zhou. Yuan shouted a warning, calling for her master. The cultivators believed that Wang Fugui was a divine court expert. Tiexing observed the scene, thinking Lu Zhou had no way to dodge the attack at such a close distance. Not even a nascent divinity tribulation expert could withstand such a strike while off guard. Wang Fugui was already celebrating victory, believing his attack had succeeded. However, he soon realized the dagger was no longer advancing. Confused, he wondered why he couldn't drive the dagger into Lu Zhou despite all his strength and the poison. Something was wrong. He noticed that the dagger had been blocked by an invisible shield. Lu Zhou unleashed a massive aura and mockingly asked why he would need a drug to face them. With a swift motion, he hurled Wang Fugui away, severing his arm. The cultivators began to lament, realizing they were the ones who had fallen into a trap, not Lu Zhou. Tiexing, stunned, questioned why the magical array hadn't worked when he took the drug again, and wondered if he had planned all of this from the beginning. His energy was at its peak, as if he had recovered after centuries. Lu Zhou wished he could maintain that power forever. Lu Zhou looked at Tiexing and asked if she truly thought he wouldn't recognize a divine court assassin disguised as the Ci family's steward. Tiexing, terrified, realized that despite years without fear, a completely new sensation overwhelmed her at that moment. For the first time, Tiexing felt fear. Lu Zhou, far stronger than she had imagined, was dismantling her plans and making her realize her underestimation. With a display of sheer skill, Lu Zhou used his telekinesis to grab Wang Fugui's head. With an unnerving calm, he stated that any fool in this world would have recognized the imperial symbol, but Murong Hai had not done so immediately. Wang Fugui, the assassin infiltrated by Tiexing, had failed. Now, he knew they were truly Lu Zhou and Yuan. Wang Fugui hesitated, suspecting that Lu Zhou was not the true patriarch of the Jinting Mountain Court, as he had assumed. Reluctantly, Wang Fugui knew that killing Lu Zhou would ruin Tiexing's plans, but his fate was already sealed. Even though all divine court experts had affiliations with powerful individuals, it didn't matter. No one yet existed who could instill fear in the patriarch of evil. With a swift and ruthless move, Lu Zhou crushed Wang Fugui's head, and a notification appeared. The merit points system recorded that Lu Zhou earned 200 points for killing a divine court assassin. Tiexing, panicking, believed she could escape, thinking Lu Zhou wouldn't have the strength to pursue her indefinitely. As Tiexing distanced herself, Lu Zhou turned to Pan Zhong, one of the cultivators present. Pan Zhong, terrified, begged for his life, aware that escaping from Lu Zhou was impossible. He knew there was nowhere left to run, and his only chance to survive was to submit to the will of the patriarch of evil. Lu Zhou gave Pan Zhong a chance to kill all those in the Brahma Sea and teach the Six Yang technique. His future depended on it. Lu Zhou summoned his mount, Wizard, and his terrifying aura intensified the fear on the battlefield. Pan Zhong, awestruck by Lu Zhou's power and Wizard's magnificence, reflected on the rumors about the patriarch of evil. They said he had ruled for 1,000 years. Now Pan Zhong saw the immeasurable strength up close. With firm resolve, Lu Zhou ordered Yuan to take her father to Blue Sun Mountain, where he would wait for her. Without hesitation, Yuan mounted Wizard and departed with her father, leaving the area efficiently and quickly. Pan Zhong, completely submissive and impressed, knelt before Lu Zhou and declared himself at the patriarch's disposal. A notification appeared. Pan Zhong became Lu Zhou's subordinate with 5% loyalty, and determined to survive, he committed himself fully. Lu Zhou, observing the situation, was satisfied with the new addition to his group. The remaining cultivators retreated, recognizing Lu Zhou's overwhelming superiority and fleeing without resistance. Lu Zhou summoned his 100 Tribulations Nether Avatar and his Dharma body, leaving everyone around in total despair. Pan Zhong, faced with his master's crushing power, fully submitted. He remembered how, in the past, everyone mocked him for becoming a villain. But now, with Lu Zhou, the prospect of facing the remaining enemies seemed an easy task for someone so powerful. Pan Zhong advanced against the cultivators, killing some with lethal precision. The remaining cultivators, confused by the unexpected alliance with the old man, retreated in terror, fearing Lu Zhou's imminent attack. Lu Zhou wielded the Guiyuan sword, and its dark energy sent the cultivators fleeing in panic, leaving them no chance to resist. One cultivator, trembling, compared Lu Zhou's attack to the destruction of Jinting Mountain Court when a dark energy filled the sky. Lu Zhou used the sword of malicious fate, cutting through all the cultivators in front of him with astounding speed. Pan Zhong recognized Yun Shanrong's technique, but it was too late for the remaining cultivators, as the black sword cut through everything. Murong Hai realized that not even specialists could withstand the power, and the battlefield, now a scene of utter destruction, fell silent. It was the perfect example of the saying that all plans and schemes are useless before absolute power. The black rays of the sword fell like relentless arrows, piercing all enemies, while Lu Zhou's absolute power became evident to everyone present. A notification appeared, stating that 15 Divine Court cultivators had been killed, and Lu Zhou received 3,000 merit points. The greatness of his power was felt in every corner of the field. Not yet satisfied, Lu Zhou invoked the technique of the Grand Avatar of Soul Pursuit. The tension in the air grew, and the remaining cultivators wondered how they could face something so powerful. Tiexing, now at a distance, reflected on Lu Zhou's strength, realizing he had returned to the peak of his power. She knew that few in the world could match him, and that any plan she had prepared was doomed to fail against such might. She tried to retreat further but soon found herself confronted by Lu Zhou's avatar. He was always a step ahead, and Tiexing knew there was no escape. She searched for hope, but upon seeing Lu Zhou's avatar, she accepted that fleeing was impossible. Lu Zhou, in an unforgiving tone, declared that Tiexing had been a very bad student. In her last moment, Tiexing could only call out to her master. It was the 100 Tribulations Nether Dharma body, towering at 30 meters tall and 6 meters wide, an immense figure with 8 leaves. Tiexing noticed the 9th leaf unfurling and the ancestral mark engraved on it, a sign of Lu Zhou's incomprehensible power. A question lingered in her mind: how much power had this old man been hiding? Lu Zhou's attack was relentless. With a simple gesture, Lu Zhou unleashed a crushing pressure that seemed to compress the very earth itself. Under this pressure, Tiexing turned to the Ring of Love, her last hope, though she knew it would be futile against Lu Zhou. Lu Zhou remained calm as ever, but he reflected on the Ring of Love, knowing it was one of the most powerful weapons Yi Tiexing possessed. He had given it to her himself, and now, with a simple gesture, he could retrieve it whenever he wished. With a swift movement, he commanded the ring to return to his hands. The Ring of Love, a deadly and symbolic weapon, reflected obsession and hatred, representing the darker side of human nature. Tiexing knew that losing the ring would drastically weaken her power, but she had no other choice. Determined to avoid defeat, she used the Blue Waves technique, creating a devastating wave of energy. But Lu Zhou, unperturbed, revealed that he knew that technique far better than she did. He used it against her with devastating force, unleashing a wave that struck Tiexing directly. The impact was brutal. The wave's strength shattered Tiexing's defenses as if they were made of paper. She felt all her hopes collapsing like a house of cards blown away by a strong wind. Lu Zhou watched the scene with an impassive gaze. He noticed something peculiar in that moment. Without the presence of other disciples, Lu Zhou felt uneasy, suspecting that Yi Tiexing wouldn't act so boldly on her own. Using the soul pursuit technique, he swiftly moved behind her, capturing her effortlessly. In an instant, she was completely subdued, with no chance of escape. A notification appeared before Lu Zhou. The system informed him that he had captured one of the rogue disciples and, as a reward, earned 1,000 merit points. Lu Zhou, speechless, gazed at Tiexing coldly, reflecting on her betrayal. She had abandoned the sect and betrayed him, and now he would settle the debt. Tiexing asked what her master wanted. Her master simply replied that he wanted everything he had given her. Without further words, Lu Zhou struck Tiexing's dantian, destroying her cultivation with a precise blow. Tiexing tried to resist, but it was useless. She soon realized that her dantian had been destroyed, and with it, all her cultivation dissipated. She had lost everything that made her a cultivator. The pain was unbearable, and her body screamed for relief, but she knew she could no longer live as a cultivator. Lu Zhou observed Tiexing, powerless, reflecting on her journey, as she overcame challenges and achieved great power, but with the destruction of her Dantian, everything was lost. A new warning appeared before Lu Zhou, informing him that hostility toward him had increased to 60%. But Tiexing, already without strength, begged to be killed immediately, as she had nothing left to lose, and her gaze was one of complete hopelessness. Lu Zhou thought about how Ji Tiandao, despite being explosive, had never caused as much hatred as Tiexing, and this troubled him. He slapped her, not out of anger, but to try to provoke some reaction in her. She, without any more strength, remembered that her brothers, the third and fourth, might have escaped the disaster. But both had died due to Lu Zhou's decision, and now, the Jinting Mountain Court had disappeared, and Tiexing felt that everything had come to an end. Lu Zhou knew he had only 5 minutes before something more serious happened, and even with the pursuit technique, he would not arrive in time. The system did not mention the third and fourth disciples, indicating they were safe, and the fourth, in particular, would not risk his life. He called Tiexing a fool, and she, not knowing how to react, asked if he would scold her again. She remembered that her fifth sister had said, Lu Zhou was different and had become unpredictable, immeasurable, and Tiexing no longer trusted him, but something had changed. Lu Zhou merely told her that no one would dare to interfere with the Jinting Mountain Court as long as he was alive. With a swift motion, Lu Zhou grabbed Yi Tiexing and held her tightly in his arms. She, shocked, wondered if he was finally going to kill her, but she soon realized he had not killed her. He held her, and her body, once filled with fear, now simply waited. The soul pursuit technique enveloped her. Without strength, Tiexing knew her life as a cultivator was over. Tiexing realized that the power came from Lu Zhou, not from any drug. Cultivators age, but experience, plans, and objectives help preserve their strength, even as their bodies lose vitality. But Ji Tiandao was very old, so she questioned how he could be stronger than before. Tiexing asked why her master said that, as she admitted she had failed, but by capturing her, he had brought upon himself a huge problem. Lu Zhou questioned if it was over. Confused, Tiexing asked what he meant, but he activated an energy shield around his disciple. Meanwhile, somewhere in the forest, the eighth disciple stepped on a pig. Then he said that his seventh elder brother had arrived just in time. Otherwise, he would have turned into fertilizer. The seventh disciple, Siwuya, told his eighth brother that he always listened to his advice but questioned why he decided to join their sixth elder sister. The eighth disciple said that he had recently been having nightmares about his master beating him, and got scared. Siwuya asked how he could be so cowardly. Shu Honggong jumped and proposed an alliance with the Tiger Ridge Gang and the Hidden Dragons, but Siwuya refused, saying he should stick with his own gang. However, Honggong asked why, since he had seen the master's avatar, and the sixth sister would surely deliver him to be roasted alive. Siwuya stated that Tiexing believed she could nullify the master's powers, but that was impossible, even with him being weaker. Honggong asked how many strikes the master had delivered, and Siwuya replied that he hadn't seen them, but Honggong teased him, and Siwuya retorted. Siwuya regretted convincing Honggong to leave, finding him unbearable, and decided to sever ties with the derived Moon Palace. Honggong questioned why. Siwuya said that Tiexing failed to attack their master and questioned the supporters, and Honggong understood. Siwuya explained that the error lay in the activation of the pattern, something that shouldn't have happened, but Honggong asked how to fix it. Siwuya then said that, if his assumption was correct, Xiao Yu was indecisive. Honggong asked if Xiao Yu had allied with Tiexing, and Siwuya confirmed it, saying that with her temperament, it was inevitable. Siwuya said that Pan Zhong, a deserter from the Clarity sect, had been used by the sixth sister to lure the youngest, angering the sect. Honggong was stunned and questioned Wang Fugui's involvement. Siwuya said it was a clever move by their sixth sister. Wang Fugui, in truth Xinyuan, was a specialist working for the Jade Lady, wife of the great Yan Emperor. However, the princess of the East had been killed by their second brother, but everyone blamed the master. Siwuya warns that the master's reaction could provoke a war, bringing suffering to the people, as the cultivators belonged to 3 southern sects of Great Yen. Siwuya reminds that the sects had lost their sacred weapons, and now, with the specialists dead, their anger would only increase. He asks Honggong what he thinks they will do next. The eighth disciple asks if this was the sixth sister's plan. Siwuya replies that, in the face of the master's power, nothing else mattered. Siwuya wonders if Tiexing's carriage is truly faster, as the master changed everything with the soul pursuit technique. But the most intriguing part was his quick fighting style, which gave Yi Tiexing no time to plan anything. Honggong says he no longer wants to be the leader of a gang and wishes to return to his small hometown. He admits he isn't as clever as his siblings, but is skilled at hiding. At Azure Sky Mountain, Yuana meets her master while still riding the wizard. She addresses her elder sister before quickly correcting herself to traitor. Lu Zhou tells her to keep an eye on Tiexing, and Yuana agrees. The effects wear off, and Lu Zhou is left drained after using the peak level experience card. Tiexing remarks that she never thought she'd see the malicious patriarch in such a pitiful state. Yuana quickly retorts that Tiexing knows nothing, explaining that her master is just an old man who needs rest from time to time. She then apologizes to her master for calling him old, and offers to lend him her clothes. Lu Zhou says there's no need since he looks cooler this way. Tiexing, however, says that if it were up to her, they would return to Jiting Mountain Court immediately. She adds that, as her master said, no one would dare attack Jiting Mountain as long as he was alive, but that the mountain's ownership would change today. Wang Fugui was a specialist from the Jade Lady sect, and the 15 cultivators killed were disciples of the 3 southern sects of Great Yen, which would have significant consequences. Yuana shakes her head, dismissing it all as nonsense, the invention of power-hungry people, and refusing to believe her master was wrong. With a cold smile, Tiexing threatens Lu Zhou, reminding him of the forces that would unite against him if she weren't released. Yuana, placing her hand on Tiexing's head, asks about her cultivation. Tiexing responds that it was destroyed, and Yuana mocks her. Tiexing claims it was Yuana's master who did this and warns her that one day he might discard her too and stop protecting her. Yuana dismisses her words, calling her a traitor and saying it was good she lost her cultivation. Tiexing wonders what kind of drugs Lu Zhou gave Yuana to make her so submissive, even commenting on the poor material of her clothes. Tiexing then tells Yuana to realize that Lu Zhou is just an ordinary old man. Yuana, however, denies this. Even without her cultivation, Tiexing notes that the old man has changed. Yuana then says she sent her father with the wizard and they could now go home. The wizard arrives, and Lu Zhou announces they can leave. Tiexing wonders if this is his legendary mount. She questions when his mount became a wizard. Meanwhile, back at Jiting Mountain, cultivators search the mountain court, declaring it abandoned. Cultivators in the sky question if the villains of Jiting Mountain Court have gone into hiding. At the malicious sky pavilion, a justice sect elder named Fang Jingshan demands that Xing reveal where the patriarch is in exchange for his life. Duanmu Xing, imprisoned, retorts that a so-called righteous cultivator is taking advantage of his situation and challenges him to fight honorably. Fang Jingshan says Xing is arrogant and claims even his master fled when he arrived. Xing taunts him, asking how his brother could bow to someone weaker than him. An energy projectile flies toward Duanmu Xing, who blocks it effortlessly with his chain. Fang warns him to measure his words, calling him a stray dog and demanding to know where his master is to ensure him a proper burial. Duanmu Xing challenges him to come and extract the answer himself. Fang declares Xing will pay for his arrogance, but his subordinates advise against it. The elder contemplates avenging his brother by killing Duanmu Xing, but his allies remind him that their sect leader wants them alive. Fang sneers, telling Xing his smile won't last and that he will taste the dungeon soon enough. Zhou Jifeng then arrives and is greeted by Fang, who asks if he has found anything about Mingshi. Jifeng says he gave orders to search the entire mountain but found nothing. Fang shouts that he saw Mingshi injured with his own eyes and insists he couldn't have escaped in such a state, but Jifeng merely responds that he is doing his best. The elder remarks that he almost forgot the patriarch of evil killed Jifeng's former master. Zhou Jifeng replies that with the second elder present, they would make him pay for it. Zhang says that even though Jifeng belongs to the Celestial Sword sect, he is obedient and sensible, to which Jifeng simply expresses his gratitude. Zhang then orders Duanmu Xing to be interrogated with torture. Jifeng hesitates for a moment upon hearing this order. Fang sneers, saying that's why the Celestial Sword sect didn't want him. He's just a stray dog who doesn't understand how he became an elder. He then dismisses Jifeng and orders him to leave. Fang raises his foot off the ground and advances with a kick at Duanmu Xing, who blocks it with his hands. Duanmu is thrown backward from the force of the kick. Fang then questions whether he's really capable of resisting as he gathers energy in his fists. An energy source flying in the sky catches the cultivators' attention. They quickly realize it's a legendary mount carrying a powerful expert. They assume it's a righteous expert coming to help them, but it's actually Lu Zhou mounted on Wizard. Lu Zhou then shouts, demanding to know who dared to invade Jiting Mountain Court. The cultivators remark that the voice is grave but doesn't carry the aura of an expert. They question the owner of the mount. Soon, Duanmu Xing kneels and welcomes his master. The cultivators concede defeat, realizing the old villain has arrived. However, they recall a report claiming he was on the brink of death due to the drug and decide to form a formation with all the gathered cultivators. Lu Zhou reflects that Tiexing was correct. The mountain had been invaded by a group of fools. She would have laughed loudly but couldn't due to the pain in her dantian, and remained awake only to witness the situation. Faced with this dilemma, Lu Zhou considers his options, using a peak experience card or fleeing and abandoning Xing and Mingshi. Tiexing begs him to let her go, insisting he has no cards left. Lu Zhou tells her she's dreaming. He uses the Eye of Truth and notices Zhou Jifeng's loyalty has increased by 5% since leaving the sect. Fan dismisses Lu Zhou, claiming he expected a powerful opponent but sees only an old man. He declares that by capturing Lu Zhou's disciples, the mountain now belongs to him. The cultivators demand that he descend. Lu Zhou reflects on the difficult decision and wishes he could save a peak experience card. Suddenly, Zhou Jifeng attacks Fang, but his strike is intercepted by Fang's shield. Fang asks why he's doing this. Zhou Jifeng says he didn't expect Fang to block his attack. Fang asks if he understands the difference between having and not having a celestial weapon, explaining that the leader only taught him. Yuan complains that the men are annoying, acting so arrogantly despite being weak cultivators. Lu Zhou remarks on the dragon heart shield, saying it's not a celestial treasure. Fang asks how he knows about the dragon heart shield. Yuan retorts, asking if he's stupid or just pretending, because while he's playing around, her master is dominating the world. Lu Zhou reflects on Ji Tiandao's dominance, and declares that if they lay down their weapons, repair the damage, and serve him for 3 years, they will have a chance to survive. Fang scoffs, saying the old villain must be joking, claiming he had abandoned his evil ways since he was letting people serve instead of killing them. The crowd jeers at this. Lu Zhou says he gave them a chance, and since they didn't take it, they will remain there forever. Tiexing watches him out of the corner of her eye. Lu Zhou then jumps off the dragon, surprising Tiexing. She notices that his aura has expanded again. The Dharma body appears, and everyone starts questioning if it truly is 100 tribulations, 100 leaves avatar. The avatar is so massive that it doubles the size of the mountain while emanating energy. Tiexing trembles at the sight. Then she faints, and Yuan catches her, remarking that she has passed out. The cultivators cry out, calling for their parents, as the first move by the patriarch of Jiting Mountain had been a supreme technique. Xing's loyalty increases by 5% as he declares his master to be the strongest in the world. Jifeng also gains a 5% increase in loyalty, stating that the old master is the most powerful in the world. Lu Zhou reflects that by becoming Tianao, he chose to follow his own path, knowing there was no safe place in this world. Jiting Mountain would be his home, and no one would take it from him. He decides to use his final peak card there. Besides this, he has 2 more demonstrations to show the world his boundless strength, proving that nothing in this world could match him. He then calls for Duan Wuxing. His disciple responds to the call, addressing him as master. Lu Zhou then explains that the final part of the technique includes both sword and spear, and he would demonstrate them both, but only once, so Xing must watch carefully. Duan Wuxing thinks that finally his master will show him the final part of the divine being technique. Lu Zhou reflects on Xing's excitement, noting that while he started training early, his progress had been slow, especially without full knowledge of the technique. His master then instructs him to use his fingers to condense energy into a sword. He then unleashes a lateral energy slash, which he calls the imperfect divine intervention. Fang tries to block it with his shield, shouting that such a thing couldn't be real. The cultivators exclaim in awe at the resilience of the dragon shield. But Lu Zhou remains motionless at the end of the attack. Fang, left without his robes, questions if Lu Zhou hasn't already killed him. Lu Zhou then instructs him to use his palm as a base and condense energy into it. Advancing on Fang, he explains that this is the result of the divine technique as a spear, turning into a long-range attack. The cultivators observe, commenting that he overlapped the energy flow into 1,000 waves that became spears, identifying this as the key move of the technique. They flee, exclaiming that not even a nascent divine tribulation expert could face it, and they wouldn't dare try. Lu Zhou then uses the 1,000 waves, delivering a long-range strike at Fang. Struck by the attack, Fang screams that he cannot die. The cultivators flee, but they too are struck by the energy of the 1,000 waves. Jifeng marvels at Lu Zhou's power, noting that he wasn't even targeting the cultivators but the spot where Fang stood, leaving them uncertain if Fang was alive or dead. However, there wasn't even dust left at the site of the attack, only a massive crater. Jifeng wonders if Lu Zhou lost his temper or did it just to teach Duan Wuxing. Even after this, only 3 minutes have passed, and Lu Zhou asks Xing if he paid attention. Duan Wuxing kneels, bowing his head to the ground and thanking his master, saying this demonstration was more effective than 10 years of solitary training. Lu Zhou praises him, while Yuan rushes to Xing. While flying above, Lu Zhou notices a sphere above the sect. Xing alerts him that the cultivators are attempting to use the same strategy they employed last time. The cultivators think that if they take someone down, they'll die, but most will survive. If they can't face the challenge, they must flee. But their plans are interrupted as Lu Zhou declares that no one will leave alive today. Duan Wuxing reflects that he doesn't even know what his master plans to do. Lu Zhou condenses energy into his palm and begins channeling it into the sphere. Xing wonders if he is repairing the sect's shield. He questions how this is possible, given the immense explosion of energy that follows. The Jiting Mountain Shield was constructed by experienced specialists, absorbing significant energy due to its geographic positioning, taking 3 years to complete. Xing wonders why his master doesn't conserve his strength, given his age, and questions the purpose of this action. Lu Zhou reflects that this is his true second intention, as the peak card keeps his dantian full. Meanwhile, the cultivators continue to flee. Jifeng notes that when he and the cultivators came, they used all their energy to destroy the shield but couldn't even scratch it, yet Lu Zhou is repairing it alone. Lu Zhou thinks the peak energy card is incredibly powerful, providing infinite energy that never depletes. Without the time limit, he would be invincible, as his dantian instantly replenishes itself. 25 minutes later, the cultivators gather together, unable to leave. Lu Zhou then declares that they are now simply waiting to die, with the shield repaired. Yuana says she has been waiting for a long time, and her master orders her to go and kill them all. Yuana charges forward, swiftly eliminating all the cultivators. Lu Zhou notices Xing approaching and calling him Master. Xing's loyalty had reached 80%, and it was remarkable he had survived his injury. Clearly, the torture he endured had contributed to his current resilience. Lu Zhou asks where the fourth disciple is. Duanmu Xing explains that he fought a fierce battle against Fang Jinshan, but their numbers overwhelmed him, forcing him to flee after being injured. However, he doesn't know where his fellow disciple is now. Soon, Lu Zhou notices his sixth disciple, who wears the earring of love. She is ranked 9th on the black roll but is severely injured. Lu Zhou reflects that it's good that the 3rd, 4th, and 6th disciples are injured, except for Yuana, who is slaughtering cultivators like a wolf in a chicken coop. Jifeng then kneels and says he would like to join Jiting Mountain and serve Ji Tiandao. A notification appears, informing Lu Zhou that he has gained a Divine Court subordinate and earned 100 merit points. He orders Jifeng to organize everything in the area. Jifeng agrees, gets up, and retrieves his weapons. The cultivators wonder if the person approaching them is Jifeng, but they are soon killed by him. Lu Zhou simply walks through the sect while waiting for the card's effect to expire. During his walk, the time finally runs out. He opens his stats and thinks he needs to carefully organize his remaining cards. His peak cards are gone, leaving only 7 critical block cards. He has no trump cards left, and is now in the sights of cultivators worldwide. With the repaired shield, he could stop strong opponents for 10 to 15 days, but no one dared to invade the mountain after the recent display. Notifications appear, stating that Divine Court and Brahma Sea cultivators have been killed. Lu Zhou remarks that the trip to Anyang earned him over 6,000 merit points, and he should consider what to do next or whether to risk the lottery. Even if he gains luck points from the lottery, it won't help if he's unlucky, so he decides to wait until the rest are eliminated before making a decision. He notes that it has been a long time since he entered the secret chamber. Seeing some techniques there, he realizes his disciples probably never cultivated them. There are also weapons, the most valuable being of mythical or rare grade, but they are useless to tribulation cultivators. Tiexing finally wakes up and wonders if this is the Heavenly Demon Pavilion. She remembers it as the site of the ceremony where she joined the sect, finding everything familiar, from the trees to the wall markings. Mingshurian then calls his sixth sister. Yi Tiexing responds and sees her fourth senior brother injured. Mingshur tells her she could return to the sect. Yi Tiexing questions him about it. Mingshur tells her to get used to it, saying they're just tricks. Tiexing asks what tricks he means. She wonders if this is truly her fourth brother, who was once so feared, now appearing so weak that even a fly could defeat him. Tiexing says she never thought she'd see him in such a state. Mingshur simply replies that he is tired. The sixth disciple says the old man left them to die on the mountain, and she can't believe he stayed voluntarily to work himself to death. Mingshur says she doesn't understand because he is not like her. As he begins healing himself with the blossoming technique, he says he still deeply respects their master. Tiexing notices flowers growing on the ground. She wonders if her senior brother has fully mastered the blossoming technique, as it represents his essence. A technique, when perfected, that could revive and restore life to the cultivator. This means that after transcending the tribulation, her senior brother could become a nascent divinity tribulation realm expert. She ponders when the old man became so generous as she observes her senior brother surrounded by flowers. A bee springs from the ground, but it is quickly crushed underfoot. Yuana, searching for her master, notices a tree entwined with vines and flowers. She asks where her master is, and Tiexing tells her to come closer, but Yuana refuses. Tiexing questions what their master has been doing all these years. Yuana asserts that she won't say, but Duanmu Xing appears and calls his younger sister, and she immediately responds to him. Yi Tiexing lets out a laugh upon seeing Duanmu Xing. Xing notices the laugh while still standing with his chain. Duanmu declares that she had abandoned the sect, betrayed their master, and her betrayal was despised by heaven and earth, yet she still dared to laugh. Yi Tiexing responds that, Now that things had come to this point, they didn't need to be hypocrites and questions if he had forgotten how the old man treated them. Tieshing continues, saying their condition was deplorable, and the old man was nearing death. When the time came, she wondered if he would still be so righteous. Duan Muxing shouts at her to be silent. He tells Yuana that, since their master isn't present, he wants her to slap Tieshing. Yuana questions this, but Xing insists she do as he says. Yuana stands before her elder sister. She gives her a small slap and then runs off. Duan Muxing declares that with that slap, Tieshing should remember that this is the malicious Sky Pavilion, the same place where she learned everything she knows from their master. Emitting a sonic wave, he warns that if she dared to be disrespectful again, he would show no mercy. Tieshing coughs up blood from the impact of the sonic wave. He reflects that, having lost her cultivation, she couldn't resist and should behave herself. Yuana offers to help her elder brother free himself from the chains. Duanmu explains that the chain is made of 1,000-year cold iron, and only the sword of their first or second elder brother could cut it. They soon notice Jifeng sneaking behind them, but Yuana orders him to stop. Jifeng greets them, calling them his seniors. Yuana remarks that he was a disciple of the Celestial Sword sect and wanted to join Jinting Mountain, which was disgraceful. Jifeng replies that he doesn't care. He adds that being there was a choice he had thought through carefully, so his seniors should give him a chance to explain himself. Tieshing retorts that he's completely insane. She points out that hundreds of people strive to stay away from Jinting Mountain, yet he wanted to join because he was eager to die. Jifeng responds that his master granted him a grace he would never forget. Tieshing remarks that this is too amusing. Meanwhile, in the secret chamber, Lu Zhou reflects on his 7,540 merit points. He notes that a 4-quadrant avatar costs 2,000 merit points, and powerful weapons require significant cultivation to wield. He notices an impeccable card that grants 10 seconds of damage immunity for 500 merit points, which Lu Zhou considers too short. He then sees the Fatal Strike card, which provides a fatal attack for 500 merit points, and wonders about its immeasurable power. As a gaming enthusiast in his past life, he reflects that weak monster items rarely activate, but this card had no limits. However, he decides to purchase it later. He notices a dozen defensive cards, which, given his current base, are useless. Even blocking 90% of an attack would leave 10%, which could kill him. He realizes most of the cards are defensive, and wonders if the system is trying to make him cowardly, meant only to endure blows without retaliating. But that was not the style of the malicious patriarch. He decides to look further but finds only cards without descriptions, suspecting the system had locked their details and prices. He spends 3,000 points to purchase 3 impeccable cards and 1 Fatal Strike card. He wonders what would happen if he used an impeccable card alongside a Fatal Strike card. Next, he ponders what to do with the remaining 4,540 merit points, and whether to buy more reversal cards to restore his life force. He considers gambling for rewards but recalls his last experience, where risking it all led to nothing worthwhile without luck. Ultimately, he decides to use the remaining points to restore his cultivation base. Afterward, he takes a chance at the lottery a few times. At the same time, in Pingdom Mountain in northern Yu, at the Nether Sect headquarters, a subordinate informs his lord that the Patriarch had captured the Palace Master, and none of the specialists who invaded Jinting Mountain survived. Yu Zhihai listens while his subordinate kneels before him. The subordinate reports that the Palace Master, his younger sister, failed to defeat the Patriarch, and the sects are furious, asking if they should intervene. A silence falls over the first disciples' hall. After a moment, Yu Zhihai declares that she deserved it, and that they would do nothing. His subordinate says he understands, but there is something else. Yu Zhihai orders him to speak. The subordinate says that the spy planted in the Imperial household reported that the Jade Lady is planning to eliminate Jinting Mountain, and even tried to persuade the Emperor. Zhihai asks if there is anything more. The subordinate replies that the Emperor punished her by confining her to her chambers for 3 months. Once again, silence falls over the room. Zhihai comments that the Great Yen is at war, and with the Imperial army tied to the capital, it cannot be moved, highlighting the Jade Lady's miscalculation. He notes that she comes from the Western lands and is not one of them. He instructs the subordinate to keep an eye on her, and the subordinate accepts the order without question. Zhihai adds one more thing before the subordinate leaves the room. He mentions that the mad swordsman should be sent to the Clarity sect to avoid the sword demon. The subordinate agrees to act immediately. At the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, Jifeng remarks that it's normal for the master to rest and recover after a battle, so his younger sister should stop pacing in circles. He reassures her that their master is a powerful expert, and everything will be fine, but Yuana just calls him an idiot. Tieshing says that if it were her, she would go in and check on him because he is old, and anything could happen. The bell rings, and Lu Zhou orders everyone to enter. Duan Muxing, Yuana, and Jifeng greet their master respectfully, but Tieshing remains silent. She nods when she sees her master sitting in a lotus position, his back against the wall. Yuana calls out to her master. Lu Zhou, however, grumbles about not winning any prizes, which prompts Yuana to question him. She asks what her master is talking about. Lu Zhou says he keeps feeling like he's reading. Better luck next time. Everywhere he looks and brushes it off, telling Yuana it's nothing. Yuana tells him not to be upset because she killed the invaders and, if he's dissatisfied, she'll destroy their bodies. Lu Zhou asks where the fourth disciple is. Duanwu Xing explains that his fourth brother is injured but has found an opportunity. He's hiding in the woods for protection and hasn't come to see their master. Lu Zhou orders that no one should enter the woods for a week, as any disruption to Mingxu's progress could prevent him from advancing. Tiexing accuses Lu Zhou of being hypocritical, saying she's sure he'll sneak in and slap him. Lu Zhou simply calls Yuana, who promptly obeys. He instructs Yuana to take Tiexing to the cliff face of the mountain to reflect on her mistakes. Yuana carries her there, accepting the order. Jifeng soon notices Lu Zhou in the hall. He kneels and begs to be accepted as a disciple. Lu Zhou reflects that he never wanted disciples because, at his peak, Ji Tian now had many. He tells Jifeng that switching techniques would double the effort for half the result. He recalls that the old villain used to recruit disciples and had one vacant spot he never filled. Jifeng begins to cry, addressing him as his elder. Lu Zhou tosses him a technique and says it's an ancient sword technique from the Celestial Sword sect, which he should have no trouble mastering. Zhou Jifeng is astonished, and Duanwu Xing reflects that this technique was only partially known in righteous sects, but for their master, it was easily obtained. Jifeng says that with this technique, he will have no trouble reaching the nascent divinity tribulation realm. Jifeng kneels and thanks Lu Zhou, calling him Old Master. Lu Zhou corrects him, saying to address him as the Pavilion Master. He adds that there are many rooms in the Heavenly Demon Pavilion outside the East and South Pavilions, so Jifeng can choose anywhere to stay. Xing begins grumbling that Jifeng is a disciple from the Celestial Sword sect, but Lu Zhou explains that he has his reasons. Lu Zhou notices the shackles on Duanwu Xing's hands. However, Lu Zhou simply says he will wander around a bit, and Xing tells him to rest well. Xing's intention was for his master to remove the chains, but Lu Zhou's indifferent attitude didn't change. Outside, Yuana asks why her brother looks sad. Xing replies that their master seemed distracted. Yuana asks if their master ordered him to do something, and Xing says he didn't ask but said something. Yuana asks what it was. Xing says their master might be dizzy. Yuana suggests it could be from spending the entire day flying on Wizard, and Xing agrees that it makes sense. The ninth disciple asks about the traitor. Xing responds that they will decide after the fourth brother ascends, while Yuana questions why someone would want to kill the master. Yuana also questions her brother for saying she was unlucky. She then says she too was unlucky. Xing tells her he will take care of her injuries, and the girl tells her brother to take care of himself. At the pavilion, Lu Zhou reflects that he has spent 3,000 points and still has 1,450, with his luck accumulating to 60 points. He tries another draw. However, he only receives 1 luck point, bringing his total to 61. Lu Zhou comments that it's still good. He decides to read the celestial script to change his luck. Lu Zhou notices that the letters he can read have not increased, forcing him to reread the same section several times to grasp its meaning. This confirms that the celestial script is unintelligible yet deeply complex. The pavilion remains calm in the meantime. 3 days later, Shui Jifeng is immersed in his sword training. Duanwu Xing is recovering from his injuries in seclusion. Yuana complains of boredom as she lies on top of a tree, noticing roses beginning to bloom. She observes the roses taking over the tree and calls for her fourth brother. She realizes that the wood is expanding at an absurd rate, and recalls that their master said the fourth brother would take 7 days, yet it has happened so quickly. The wood has already grown to the height of the malicious sky pavilion, and then it begins to break apart. An explosion follows. The explosion is visible from the entire pavilion. Mingxu emerges, stating that he feels comfortable, even though he is completely unclothed. Lu Zhou questions how they dare disturb him, while he is studying so intensely. Yuana congratulates her fourth senior brother for entering the divine tribulation realm. Mingxu calmly puts on his clothes. He then calls for his younger sister, who asks why he awakened so early. Mingxu declares that the world will belong to him in the divine tribulation realm. Yuana asks about his avatar, and he responds that he didn't need 7 days because he had been ready for a long time. A sound pierces through Mingxu's barrier as their master questions how he dares disturb him. The barrier explodes, and Mingxu falls to his knees, begging his master for forgiveness. Yuana asks if Mingxu needed to kneel to release the avatar, but Mingxu merely reflects on the incredible methods of their master. Mingxu explains that he just entered the divine tribulation realm and isn't fully accustomed to it. Yuana begins recounting everything that happened over the past 2 days. Mingxu asks if the Sixth Sister's base was destroyed and tells Yuana to investigate and gather information at Tongzi. Yuana says her eldest brother had instructed her, but Mingxue tells her to stay out of trouble. They both disperse. Mingxue reflects that he had recently received a secret warning through a voice transmission and still has a long way to go. While leaping, he notices Jifeng training. Approaching the disciple, he comments that he heard Jifeng is a rare genius of the Celestial Sword sect. Jifeng greets Mingxue, calling him fourth elder brother, and says he isn't as remarkable as Yuana described. Mingxue suggests that Jifeng could be his training target. He then uses the 100 Tribulations avatar of discernment. Jifeng observes and notes that it's a lesser form of the 100 Tribulations avatar. Mingxue questions this, but Jifeng dodges and appears to faint, seemingly to avoid a beating. At the pavilion, Lu Zhou reflects that after studying for several days, he gained some understanding, yet many obscure meanings remain. With 61 luck points, he tries a draw but gains only 1 luck point. Frustrated, he attempts for consecutive draws. All attempts fail, prompting him to question if the system is flawed. With 60 luck points, he should have received something significant. Trying again, he acquires only 1 reversal card for 66 luck points. Lu Zhou notes that despite using so many merit points, he only obtained 1 reversal card. With 1,190 points remaining, he attempts another draw. This time, Lu Zhou receives an unnamed weapon and a mount called Bayan. He is left speechless. Lu Zhou questions whether such fortune can even be believed, as he gained only a reversal card with 66 luck points but received a weapon and a mount with no points left. The Lady of Luck had smiled upon him. He then summons the unnamed weapon. To his surprise, it is just a trembling orb. Lu Zhou questions what it could possibly be. A notification appears, stating that the weapon can change form at will and becomes more powerful as the cultivation level increases. Lu Zhou experiments with it several times, transforming it into a spear and a sword, commenting that it's like having an arsenal in one weapon. He remarks that his reward was worth 10 times the effort, and decides he should test its power. Meanwhile, Tiexing suffers on the reflection peak, sitting amidst the ice. Mingxue asked her for this matter. He soon realizes she doesn't want to discuss the past. He mentions that he started earlier and suffered more than she did. Tiexing snaps that once he starts talking, he never stops. Mingxue says times have changed, and now their master is gentler, but Tiexing dismisses this as a bad joke. The fourth disciple asks if she still doesn't understand that their master never took them seriously. Tiexing says she does take it seriously, and as long as she lives, she'll always feel anxious and as if she's on a tightrope. Mingxue slaps her face. Tiexing looks at him in fear. Mingxue's face is terrifying. The stubborn pavilion master turns her face again, ready for another slap. But Mingxue stops mid-motion. He sighs deeply. Then he says she should talk to the master directly and thinks to himself that he hopes he won't have to persuade her again. Mingxue gets up, but Tiexing asks him to wait. The fourth disciple asks if she has something to say. Tiexing says the disciples of Yanhua Palace will save her and pleads for his mercy. Mingxue asks if she still hasn't learned, pointing out that they couldn't even defend her, let alone save her. Tiexing questions this, but Mingxue explains that with the Cloud sect and Luo sect destroyed, their master had no other outlet for his wrath. He says the first place annihilated was her palace. Tiexing just watches him leave. She finds herself trembling, refusing to accept this. Back at the pavilion, Lu Zhou receives a notification saying he disciplined a traitorous disciple and earned 100 merit points. He reflects that at the soul condensation level, he still has a long way to go to control the orb, and the weapon's limitations feel worse than killing someone mercifully. Even a broadsword had suffered some damage, as had his nameless weapon, which he attributes to his 0 luck value. But his thoughts are interrupted by Yuana, who says Pan Zhong from the Jingning Taoist school is requesting an audience. Lu Zhou remarks that the orb is useless and decides to check on the mount later when he has time, setting aside the longsword. But the longsword begins to fragment. Pan Zhong greets his elder, and Moronghai kneels, addressing him as senior. Yuana explains that while gathering information, she found the two kneeling outside the barrier and brought them to her master. Lu Zhou asks Yuana if she caused them any trouble. Yuana says she only obtained good information and reports it to him. Lu Zhou tells the two to stand and speak. Pan Zhong rises and accepts the command. Meanwhile, Moronghai trembles at the sight of Lu Zhou. Lu Zhou notices his expression but remains indifferent. Moronghai pleads for mercy, admitting it was his mistake for not recognizing Lu Zhou's greatness. Yuana questions why he's acting that way when she was friendly, but Lu Zhou orders her to remove Moronghai. The girl throws him far away, obeying her master's command. Lu Zhou reflects that people wanting to join Jiting Mountain now seemed like a bad omen, so he calls Pan Zhong. The elder asks if Pan Zhong wishes to join Jiting Mountain. Pan Zhong kneels and says he offers himself to Jiting Mountain, hoping the elder will accept him. Lu Zhou reflects that although Pan Zhong has a bitter disposition, his body is suitable for learning the 3-yin technique. He tells Pan Zhong that while many Taoists want him eliminated, As long as he is a disciple of Jiting Mountain, he will protect him, but warns him not to step out of line. The loyalty of Pan Zhong rises by 10% as he declares that if he ever thinks of betraying the sect, he will be killed by 1,000 cuts and 10 slashes. Lu Zhou states that it is very good and values promises, so Pan Zhong should stand up. Soon, Mingshi arrives and informs his master that he has broken through to the Divine Tribulation realm. Pan Zhong reflects that those who reach this realm are experts in all fields, and there were already many on this mountain. A notification appears, stating that Lu Zhou has earned 100 points for disciplining his disciple. Lu Zhou then tells Mingshi not to be arrogant, but to become humble. Pan Zhong reflects on how people said the old devil of Jiting Mountain was cruel and hot-headed, but he saw the opposite. Compared to the Taoists, he was much better. Mingshi informs that Tiexing was imprisoned in the penitent's cave and wishes to teach her a lesson to relieve his master's anger. Lu Zhou notes that the one responsible was the fourth disciple and says Tiexing should reflect in the penitent's cave, as her abduction also involved her fifth and eighth brothers. Mingshi says that now that he has broken through the Divine Tribulation barrier, he would like to test his abilities by capturing the eighth disciple. Xu Honggong sneezes when his name is mentioned, but Lu Zhou tells him not to worry, and they are dismissed. Mingshi winks at Pan Zhong, who questions his senior. The fourth disciple questions if Pan Zhong is new there, and Pan Zhong greets him. Mingshi asks if Pan Zhong would like to see the 100 Tribulations avatar. Yuana flies in and asks about her fourth brother, who says it's good she arrived because she will witness her elder brother's avatar. The ninth disciple denies this, saying she saw some people in front of the mountain and thinks they might attempt to invade again. Mingshi says that's wonderful, and he will handle the matter while she and their master should rest. Yuana informs him that all those people are cultivators from the Yanhua Palace. Only Pan Zhong and Yuana remain there. Yuana asks if he lost something on his face, and Pan Zhong thinks he barely even looked at her. Mingshi flies quickly with a smile on his face. Jumping into the air, he floats with energy. Mingshi finally activates the 100 Tribulations avatar. The people notice his avatar and think of fleeing. The cultivators from the derived Moon Palace remark that something is off, as the avatar is small and in the early stages, while the old man's avatar was larger. Mingshi asks who dares to invade Jiting Mountain, but he hesitates upon noticing something. All the cultivators kneel before him, and Mingshi asks why they surrendered so quickly to avoid being struck down in a single blow. The cultivators beg for the veterans' help, saying they are disciples of the Yanhua Palace. Mingshi reflects that it's embarrassing, as they are not intruders but merely disciples of his sister, whose cultivation was destroyed. And the three southern sects didn't want to confront the mountain but targeted the palace. However, the issue was that they sought help from Jiting Mountain. There were over 100 cultivators, many in such poor condition they could barely walk. He asserts that his sister tried to kill their master, was imprisoned, and her disciples deserve punishment. He asks if they've lost their will to live by coming to the mountain. One cultivator pleads for the sake of her mistress for him to help. Mingshi reflects that this is unexpected, as the palace is so cornered that it has nowhere else to turn. Then he says he will not help them, and it's a joke because whether they live or die is none of his concern, and they should consider him generous for not attacking. But a noise is heard in the sky, accompanied by a carriage. The cultivators scream that it's the demon-slaying sect that has arrived. They kneel at Mingshi's feet and beg for him to let them in. He reflects that without cultivators at the Divine Tribulation level, they are just riffraff. Mingshi questions the demon-slaying sect while pondering that it should be the three sects, and not the demon-slaying sect. Seeing all of them trembling like that is utterly pathetic to him. He wonders if there's anyone more frightening than Jiting Mountain, and if they are afraid of the demon-slaying sect instead of the mountain. Then, with a smile, he says this is interesting. He reflects on the three masters on the blacklist, with veterans Wu Xian Chan being one of them, for he is the #1 expert under the command of the master of the demon-slaying sect. The Demon Slayers sect and the Jiting Mountain sect had always been neutral toward each other, so it raises the question of why they attacked the Yanhua Palace. The sect's representative steps forward and states that the Demon Slayers sect had no intention of attacking the mountain as long as the female cultivators were handed over to them. Mingshi tells them to do as they wish. The representative expresses his gratitude and says he will repay the favor one day. However, Mingshi orders them to wait while he enters the barrier. The representative asks if there is something he needs. Mingshi explains that he forgot his master's new teaching. He then pushes two female cultivators into the barrier, saying that his master had recently been treating people kindly. The cultivators are thrown inside the barrier. They thank the fourth disciple for his mercy, while the representative questions whether those women had gone mad. He adds that he cannot overlook the fact that the fourth disciple went back on his word. Meanwhile, Mingshi gains 1,450 merit points for absolute respect. Yuana appears and informs his master that the fourth disciple is about to kill someone. Lu Zhou, believing the day was too peaceful, asks what happened. Yuana explains the entire situation while sitting. Lu Zhou questions whether the scattered cultivators still had the audacity to come to Jinting Mountain and remarks that they were merely from the divine court. The master states that the matter is trivial and his disciples can handle it. He reflects on how he had drawn so many lucky cards that it made him dizzy and decides to memorize them instead of wasting time. Yuana leaves, assuring him she will take care of everything for her master. Mingshi asks if the cultivators were dissatisfied with his actions. The representative simply stares at him. Then someone inside a boat asks if they may have an audience with his honorable master. Mingshi senses a powerful sound wave, incomprehensible to those who have not opened the Brahma meridians, and remarks that his master doesn't waste time on just anyone. The voice from the boat remains silent. Mingshi advises them to take advantage of his good mood and leave. However, an energy begins circulating in the air. The voice from the boat questions whether their qualifications are good enough to meet his master while forming a divine avatar. Mingshi reflects that a 4-leaf, 5-meter dark avatar would be a foe only his elder brothers or master could face. He then says that if they came to the mountain to show off their strength, they came to the wrong place. The cultivator asks how he dares while preparing an energy wave, but then he begins to retreat. Shinchan appears and introduces himself, respectfully requesting an audience with the mountain's master. He adds that he asks with sincerity. Mingshi questions if he was trying to intimidate him when Yuana appears, calling her elder brother. Yuana says the master had sent orders for them. Luo Shinchan remarks that this was the famous 9th disciple. Yuana asks when she became famous. Shinchan highlights her legend of reaching the divine court in 3 years, and Yuana informs him that the master was waiting for him in the hall. At the Evil Sky Pavilion, Lu Zhou sits on the throne alongside Duan Wuxing, Pan Zhong, and Zhou Jifeng. He reflects that this chair hadn't been used for a long time and feels cold because he isn't used to it. Shinchan arrives and greets the old master. Lu Zhou stares at him indifferently. Shinchan stares back at the old master. Then he tells Shinchan to sit. Shinchan states that the Manhua palace provoked the Demon Slayers sect and, with their disciple captured, they only had themselves to blame. However, regarding the female cultivators, he wishes the old master would hand them over to the Demon Slayers sect. Duan Wuxing declares that the Manhua palace was established by the Jinting Mountain trader, and punishment does not fall under the Demon Slayer sect's authority. Shinchan acknowledges that the 3rd disciple speaks the truth, but under the trust of Jingming Dao, Pan Zhong betrayed the sect, and the Demon Slayer sect could punish him as they saw fit because Pan Zhong intended to join them. Additionally, the slaves of the 3 lower families were unworthy of stepping into the Evil Sky Pavilion. Lu Zhou tells him to continue while Duanmu remains furious. Shinchan states that the 3rd reason fulfills the first 2 since the sect is hated by the righteous, and because the top 10 experts had already fought against the old master, their power had grown significantly. Therefore, if the Evil Sky Pavilion is willing to unite with the Demon Slayers sect, they will have no rivals under the heavens. Duan Wuxing shouts that it's all a load of nonsense, and judging by the insignificant status of the demonic sect, they were not worthy of negotiating with the Evil Sky Pavilion. Shinchan apologizes in case he has offended the 3rd disciple. Mingshi tells him to allow an explanation, and Shinchan asks him to enlighten them. The 4th disciple states that, first of all, the owner of the palace was Tiexing, and if a dog bites, it is something that depends on its owner, to which Shinchan agrees. But the second point is that, upon Pan Zhong joining, he would be considered part of Jinting Mountain, causing problems for the pavilion. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.